Do the roll call. Trustee Benz?
Let's give them about 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay.
We're still filtering in.
Ready to get it going.
I'm missing Reuben and Mark is here. Oh, there he is. He's passing stuff out. All right. I want to welcome everyone to the meeting. Thank you for being here so promptly. We've got a pretty lengthy agenda today, as we did yesterday. I thought it was very productive at the workshop yesterday, and hope we continue to have some good dialogue. Lena, can you call the roll, please?
Trustee Benz?
Here.
Trustee Burr? Here. Trustee Bush-Transu?
Here.
Trustee Cants?
Here.
Trustee Duda? Here. Trustee Gruters? Here. Trustee Haggard? Here. Trustee Hillis? Here. Trustee Kinsey? Here. Trustee Lewis? Here. Trustee Rolando? Trustee Rolando? Trustee Sembler?
Here.
Trustee Stokes? You have a quorum.
All right. Thanks, Lena. We have several items to consider today. Just a reminder that when you make a motion and or a second, that you state your name for the records. And as a reminder, it's being filmed. So watch your P's and Q's. Let's move on to our business. You've all received a copy of the minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Trustee Duda moves to approve them. Trustee Gruder seconds. Are there any questions? Is there any discussion? Any objections to the minutes? Seeing none, the motion carries. President's report. Dr. Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just a few items. First of all, I would like to introduce our new VP for Research, Gary Ostrander. Maybe Gary will stand back here. He joined us 2 weeks ago from the University of Hawaii. At the University of Hawaii, he helped move that the research agenda and external funding of that university to new heights, and we welcome him to Florida State University. As you also know, the staff in my office is being reorganized, and I would like to introduce, if you don't happen to know him, David Coburn as Special Assistant to the President. And David has tremendous experience as a Chief of Staff in different parts of our legislature and as a budget officer. And so I expect that there will be a lot of things in my office that will work very well with his able hands. A couple of other items. I did want to point out, even though we discussed it a little bit yesterday, that in our U.S. News and World rankings, we moved from 101 to 97 among all universities and from 46 to 42 among all publics. That's the highest ranking we've had in more than a dozen years. So that's a good thing, especially when you consider the budget issues that we've been going through. Frequently you see the top 30 publics as being the public elite in this nation. And so 42, in my view, is starting to close in on being part of that elite. Many people look at membership and things like the AAU as being particularly significant. I like to see all the metrics going in the right direction, but you don't have so much control over who invites you to membership you certainly have control over some of the things you do to promote quality as long as you have the resources to do it. And, my view is this should be part of the target of the university, is to be in that top 30 set of publics. I also want to point out that although we went up 4 places in our quality, we dropped 8 places in our financial resources. So it's even more interesting that we could move up while dropping 8 places in financial resources. We dropped from 204 in the nation to 212. They rank 270 universities. So we're a top 100 university, and we're not even in the top 200 in terms of the financial resources we have. Every single thing went up except for resources for our faculty. That's student-faculty ratio and faculty salaries. Okay. I want to point out, even though we, again, mentioned this a little bit yesterday, that the university has used some of the dollars that we've generated from different efficiencies to put a greater emphasis on careers of our students, and everybody recognizes, especially after the discussion of the Blue Ribbon Panel, how important that is. But Janet Kistner, who is new in the Office of Provost, will be focusing on the whole notion of tracking careers and what are our students doing, where are they going. Dawn Randall in alumni will be working on this in terms of alumni networking and interaction with our alumni. And also we've added to the Career Center under Student Affairs. So we're trying to build a team that crosses the entire university that lets us know what our students are doing, but also helping them by creating more networks with our alumni, many of whom may end up employing our students. I have one slide. If we go to that. Okay, this is a little bit of a source of pride. That building circled up there is the Gunter Building. It has housed the Geological Survey for the state. It's the gateway to the University off of Tennessee, right there at Woodward and Tennessee. The university has been trying to get that piece of property transferred to us for more than 40 years. There's a wonderful letter that I now have in my files from Bernie Sliger, for example, basically working hard to get that transferred because, after all, it's in a prime location and a gateway, but not ours. And apparently the request for it went back earlier than that. And I'm proud to say that just a couple of weeks ago, that piece of property was formally transferred to Florida State University. So this is a cool thing because it's at the gateway. It's a cool thing for another reason, and that is because we have approved from the legislature and the governor last year the funds to do the planning for the Earth, Ocean, Atmospheric Science Building, STEM building. An important building because we combined those 3 programs, but they're in 3 different buildings. It's hard to create a cohesive program if you're in 3 different buildings. And so we requested the funds to build a new building, got the planning money. I think this is a good sign, even though there's no PICO dollars. The wonderful thing about that Gunter building is it allows us to build that building without disturbing any of the faculty or student programs. So in a very land-tight university, this is just like a great development. That the survey is being housed in university property off campus, and we hope that with the development of that building, with a continuing lease arrangement, that the survey might come back on campus and interact just like NOAA does with our meteorology program, come back on campus and be part of that new building. Nothing guaranteed there. But anyway, this is a wonderful development. I also want to point out, in case you could have possibly missed it, but somehow I think we said it enough times, that we do have our first balanced budget since 2006-07. And this is the first year in 5 years that we have added more faculty than we have lost during a year. So we're down more than 200 faculty, and we hired 21 more than we lost. So I'm hoping that this balanced the the budget, a lot of different efficiencies to save money, small amount of the money left over from the tuition increase, that we're beginning to turn the tide. And I tell people that most people don't see the damage done to the university by the budget cuts. But in particular, because of that loss of over 200 junior faculty, we're seeing the number of grants and contracts that this university is putting out there dropping considerably, because we don't have the same number of people that are out there writing grants and contracts. And so it looks fine now in terms of research expenditures, but we're going to watch this start to nosedive, and we just kind of hope that we're in time in terms of getting the budget balanced, and hopefully not any more cuts, that that we don't start to lose our place as one of the truly top research universities. One other element that I would like to bring up is, we've had a lot of talk about development and a lot of talk about our big ideas, and everybody has seen the booklets that we have. And, you can't raise money on your smile. You can raise a certain amount because people love you, but you got to have a vision that people see and that they appreciate and that they want to give to support that vision. That's one element. Another element of this is that it becomes important to a donor to know that the university is committed. So I started to think that perhaps one of the things you might not realize is the degree to which this university is pushing forward on all of these big ideas as we raise funds. So I just thought I would quickly go through that list. So the Entrepreneurial University, we have given the College of Business permission to hire, to open the doors of the College of Business to majors from other colleges. Huge step forward in what's about a 5 or 6 point plan on how to become a truly entrepreneurial university. And you also know that you approved the creation of a student foundation to make it easier for students to create businesses. In the STEM focus, particularly in materials and energy, wonderful opportunity to leverage things like the Mag Lab and the Aero Propulsion Labs and the other parts of the university in engineering and sciences. And so there is an 8-cluster hire there as part of this effort to turn the tide on the loss of faculty. So this is a substantial STEM opportunity. Successful longevity, another idea that you have heard about, which looks across the full spectrum of colleges and how they contribute to the study of aging. Everything from medicine to nursing to nutrition to human performance to brain imaging to psychology to cognition to communication to policy, this whole broad list. We've found the funds to hire the director and to begin a modest hiring. The Veterans Program, we have a Veterans Legacy Complex that's planned. This is the big target, but we've hired a director, we've hired a support staff. We have someone that is there that is focusing on advising, and they have permission to add an additional person in that group. They're temporarily housed in the Pearl Tyner House. So this is something that is substantial. We have our second veterans film that will be out in a couple of weeks, a controversial film, but we also now have an award, Torchlight Award, for the best film that contributes to issues related to veterans. And that Torchlight Award will be given for the first time to the film that will be showing here on Veterans Day. So a good set of starts that for that. The Honor Scholars and Fellows House, we're busily raising money for that. Construction is going up. We don't have enough money to finish it. We believe we're going to find the money to finish it. We don't want to stop. After all, the ground floor is going to house 2 food service areas that would be difficult to see from Landis Green, but the upper levels will have the classrooms and the Office of Undergraduate Research, the Honors Office, and the Office of National Fellowship. So our honor students will go to classes, step outside, and we'll have all the people that are there to help them. So that building is under construction, and we're working hard to raise the money to finish the inside of it. As you know, we purchased the land that is adjacent to the parking garage and fine arts. This is the location for the Creative Crucible, big idea that would put motion pictures, theater, and College of Music all adjacent to each other so that we have a truly creative campus area, fine arts campus area, including entrepreneurial space for exhibits and for performance. And so at least the land is there, a contiguous 3 acres, plus we hope that we can still add to that. Garnet and Gold Scholars, which focuses on engagement, because we know students who are engaged in worthwhile activities are happier, get better grades, and better jobs if they're not just going to class, but doing worthwhile activities. And you remember the 5 pillars are international, internships, research, service, and leadership. All of those contribute to employment. As a small bit of humor, I was sitting there talking to an alum in Tampa, St. Pete, at a event, and I said something about Garnet and Gold Scholars, and the alum said, "Oh yes, the 5 pillars." And I was so excited, I started to pat him on his back, and I drenched him in wine because I was so excited that he knew everything there was to know about Garnet and Gold Scholars. But we've already had our first 124 students.
Tolerance is the 6th pillar.
Yeah, tolerance is the 6th pillar. That's right. But anyway, we've already had 124 scholars graduate, and we have such a high level of interest that we have had to add a person in student affairs to manage the number of students that are working towards these goals. So that's a wonderfully exciting contribution to student success, as well as our student foundation now having contributed, just recently presenting us a second check for $100,000. That student foundation has now contributed, the students themselves, $215,000 towards this goal, which is wonderful. And the Knight Foundation has just, after 2 years, when we first talked to them, has contributed $250,000 for our service scholars. So we're building some momentum there. In athletics, as soon as the athletic big idea, as soon as the Florida game is over, we will break ground on the indoor practice facility. So hopefully this is not just taking up your time here, but I just want you to realize that those big ideas are helping drive the university. And when we get a little bit of money, we're supporting them so that then that can also support fundraising. So I just went through more than half of the big ideas where we already have significant progress. So these are strategically driving investment and activities in the university. My personal feeling is when the university stands up and says we're going to do something, that's exactly what we should do. And I made a point of this when we were talking about preeminence, that if we got a tuition increase, I said we're going to focus on an entrepreneurial university, STEM and materials and energy, make sure students have the courses that they need to graduate, and then we're going to look at successful longevity next. And I think you'll hear from the provost report, and what you heard briefly from me is that we use those tuition dollars after balancing our budget and taking a third of it into financial aid. There wasn't much left. $4 million is what's left. But we did exactly what we told the Board of Governors that we were going to do, and exactly what I put in the report to the governor. And so I'm just hoping people will look at Florida State and said, well, this is what they said they're going to spend their tuition on. It's not a black hole where they did whatever they wanted when they got the money. We did exactly what we said we were going to do. Okay. The final part from yesterday, it was on our agenda to look at efficiency and effectiveness. And so we're reporting out now on efficiencies in the university. And you got as a handout what we reported out 3 years ago, which was basically we cut 800 positions from the university. And then as you go forward in time and come to the present, or you look at what's happening in finance and administration, what you see is a growing list of topics that are more like, we saved this much money because we recycled this. We saved this much money because we reduced our power consumption, energy consumption. And you're starting to see a university that is very deliberate in terms of creating efficiencies, because one of the few ways we have to be able to spend money on quality is actually to create efficiencies in our budget to be able to move forward, because we're not getting the money anywhere else. And so my belief is that this should always be an activity, and it should be a very thoughtful one. And the more we entrain smart folks who have run businesses and looked at different efficiencies in their own business and match them up with the university, the stronger position we will be in to say that we're really doing everything we can to look for efficiencies in the budget. And Chairman Benson and I have had a discussion about whether this should actually yield a committee of this board that will match up with the university, and so we can have a little bit of give and take. Have you thought of this? And also, here's what we're thinking about. And we can work together to make sure that we continue this push to find more and more efficiencies. Of course, when you lose 25% of your academic and operational budget, that has a way of forcing you to be efficient. But there's still things out there that I think that can help us. And at this point, every dollar we find, we can truly put to good use. So I'm hoping that when it comes time for the chairman's report, or at the pleasure of the board, that we might contemplate setting up such a group. But that concludes my presentation. A little bit of excitement on getting the Gunner building, but more a message that says that we've put all these ideas out to be strategic. We're fundraising for them, but the university is actually operating with these as a major guidance on what direction they were going. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments for President Barron? This is a lot different than yesterday. Nobody wanted to not talk yesterday. Well, great job. We've made very good progress, and I will tell you that at the DSO meetings back in September, much of what President Barron covered today, he covered then as well, plus the new news. But it was great to get all of these volunteers and folks that are involved in the DSOs up to speed in these great accomplishments that we've been able to get done over the last couple of years. So anyway, good job. Good job. Okay, now we'll hear from Dr. Gary Tyson of the Faculty Senate Steering Committee. Good morning, Dr. Tyson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. I'm a professor in computer science and the new vice chair of the Senate Steering Committee. I took over from Dr. Susan Fiorito in May, and this is my first opportunity to meet with you. I'm happy to present the report from the Faculty Senate. There's only a few things that I want to talk about, and then I need to rush off to class. First, on behalf of the Faculty Senate and the Senate Steering Committee, I would like to indicate our support for the changes in the administrative organization of the Dean of Faculty's office and the elevation of the position to Vice President of Faculty Development and Advancement. We believe that this structural change will further improve cooperation between the faculty and the administration. We're also delighted to welcome Vice President Sally McCrory to serve in this new position. We have known Dr. McCrory for years as Dean, and we believe she is an excellent choice to serve in this new role. President Barron and Provost Stokes continue to build a strong leadership team throughout the Vice President and Dean levels. I know the members of the board recognize the extraordinary capabilities of President Barron and his leadership team. I want to assure you that the faculty see this as well, and we are excited about the vision for the future of the university that President Barron presents. Florida State University is seeing increased emphasis in the development of interdisciplinary programs. both academic and research programs. This is due in part to the resources put into the big ideas that President Barron mentioned, College of Business to support the entrepreneurship throughout the university, and faculty lines given to a variety of departments in support of interdisciplinary programs in energy and material science. It is also a reflection of more interdisciplinary trends found in existing programs that are bringing our faculty together in research and teaching. The Faculty Senate is in the process of determining the best standards and practices for encouraging the development of interdisciplinary programs. Investment in growing new programs is vital to the health of the research university, but this growth must be efficiently managed to ensure the success of these new programs. The Faculty Senate will continue to work with FSU administrators to develop a set of operating principles to develop and oversee the new interdisciplinary academic programs. We believe that having the faculty and the administration working together will lead to a period of growth in interdisciplinary research and academic programs that will have a positive impact on the university in years to come. Another great topic of interest to the faculty is the push towards structuring distance learning courses across the state university system. Currently, each university has developed its own strategy for employing distance learning in their curriculum. This has led to a variety of approaches among the universities and differing opinions on the best practices for doing distance learning. This can lead to some inefficiencies in the delivery of online instruction, and this in part has led to the idea of centralizing delivery of distance courses. On the other hand, a centralized model can lead to stagnation in the development of new methods of instruction, particularly in areas where the best practices have not been developed. We think this is a critical area to get right because getting this one wrong can set us back. Models that work well for offering an MBA online may not work for students who are new to university education. So what works for a student who has already got a BA or BS may not be what you want to do for freshmen coming in. Our faculty is currently in the process of evaluating existing distance learning techniques across a variety of curricula to develop a set of principles and requirements for online instruction. We hope to be able to adopt and adapt to any system-wide requirements in this area. Finally, the Faculty Senate is working with our representative at the State Committee to determine the new liberal studies requirements for all state universities. FSU is fortunate to have Dean Karen Laughlin to head the committee. Whatever changes are made, these changes are likely to have wide-ranging effects to many of the departments that offer existing liberal studies courses. The Faculty Senate is ready to work with the administration on finding best solutions to meeting these new requirements. That is all I have to report. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Tice.
All right, thank you, and sorry for leaving.
Be on time. Okay. Now, Catherine Pourwall is going to report on the activities of the Student Government Association. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all on behalf of the Student Government Association this morning. Once again, I'm Catherine Pourwall, and I'm serving as the 2012-2013 Student Body Vice President. First and foremost, the inaugural Transfer Leadership Institute class is off to an amazing start. Working on an elaborate transfer event for their peers, the transfer students have found themselves already incredibly engaged in campus opportunities, including acting as student senators and agency executive board directors. The fourth consecutive Freshman Leadership Institute is coming to a close with their philanthropy project in mid-November. This year, we're excited and pleased to announce that the Freshman Leadership Institute has represented the class of 2016 and participated in Homecoming Week, involved in the banner competition, was able to walk in the parade with their big banner that they all signed during freshman orientation, and actually had a division in homecoming this year. So that was really exciting. The Stokes-Pourwall administration was adamant about the disability awareness cause as well. In mid-October, in concert with the Department of Student Affairs, the university held the first ever Disability Awareness Week. Seminoles were able to undergo simulations, witness presentations, and participate in conversations about the progress of our university in regards to the specific cause. The dedication of the new ramp in the Union, a dynamic speaker, and a wheelchair experiential element were just a few of the many opportunities that students had during the week. The Office of Governmental Affairs has been a highly efficient bureau this year and has already made great strides in the ways of student engagement. OGA, in conjunction with the Student Senate and Executive Cabinet, hosted a historic meeting of senators with FAMU student senators and student leaders, as well as our student leaders on campus. The night consisted of resolutions that encouraged better relationships between our universities. The universities pledged to support each other with lobbying in regards to lobbying at the Capitol for student rights, as well as facilitating student-run events. OGA has acted as the umbrella organization for the upcoming presidential election with voter registration drives that have registered over 1,300 students. Locally, our OGA was the driving force behind Amendment 12 and has been crucial in providing publications on this ballot topic. No matter the end, SGA is pleased to have been a part of the legislative process this year. Student government has also been planning for next year's budget and future expenditures. In September, the local fee committee hearing met to recommend fee changes to the activities and service fee, the health fee, and the athletic fee. The committee was made up of 4 students and 3 administrators. After 2 meetings and healthy deliberations, the committee found it necessary to raise the aggregate sum of the local fees by $1.53, with the breakdown as follows. So stay with me here. It's really exciting. The activity and service fee, an increase in the current fee from $12.24 to $12.86 per credit hour, with an estimate annual revenue of $13,997,518. The athletics fee, with an increase in the current fee from $7.54 to $7.90 per credit hour, with estimated annual revenue of $8,598,786. And the health fee, with an increase in this current fee from $13.42 to $13.97 per credit hour, with an estimated annual revenue of $15,205,702. If you need me to repeat any of that, go ahead and ask. The reasons were determined based on proposals presented to the committee this year. We also recently approved the budget for the 2013-2014 fiscal year with a budget amounting to $13.9 million. Last week was homecoming for Florida State, centered around the theme Homecoming 2012, It's a Seminole Thing. This homecoming week kicked off on Sunday, October 21st, with the highly anticipated War Chant concert featuring Grammy Award-winning artist T.I. With the help from the Student Government Association and the athletic department, the Homecoming Executive Council was able to host the War Chant concert inside of Doak Campbell Stadium, and it was amazing. There was an amazing turnout there. Florida State University students and general public were advised to bring 2 canned food items in lieu of admission. Due to the promotion, the Second Harvest Food Bank was able to collect over 11,000 pounds of canned food, enough to supply about 10,000 meals to families in the Tallahassee area. Friday afternoon kicked off the annual homecoming parade hosted by the Student Alumni Association. There were over 150 floats, making this parade the largest Florida State University has ever seen. Participants in the parade included local businesses, recognized student organizations, Greek life, and others. Friday night capped off homecoming week with the largest pep rally in the state of Florida called Pow Wow, held in the Leon County Civic Center with Kathy Griffin, who was the comedian, and she was awesome. I stayed for her. And I've actually never seen the Civic Center stay as full during a powwow as it was this year. So I really think this year's homecoming was successful overall. The Night of Seminole Pride included performances by the Marching Chiefs, the FSU Circus, the FSU Cheerleaders, and the Seminole Dance Force. The game was an obvious success and was a perfect end to the week. In closing, Ruben and I recognize our term is at the midway point now, but we are no less energized. New projects are emerging to ensure we continue to serve students to the best of our ability. Once again, thank you for your time. I look forward to further updates and will entertain any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you, Catherine. You've been busy.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Ruben, any comments? Okay. Any questions? Comments by board trustees? Good job. Thank you very much,
Thank
Catherine.
you so much.
Next, we'll have an update from Liz Mariansky, who is our Vice President for University Relations. Welcome, Liz.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight the work of university relations during the past few months. We continue our deliberate and focused strategy to raise the profile of Florida State University. My presentation today focuses on the impact of university-wide collaborations. These partnerships ensure that the institution and those it serves are maximizing a return on investment, enhancing relationships, and strengthening the university's reputation. We've often heard President Barron say that if you give Florida State $1, we know how to make an impact. Our efficiency and resourcefulness is reflected in contributors and supporters, and such is the case with WFSU.
The operation of WFSU radio and television is a true partnership with the communities we serve. This past year, for example, over 7,800 people donated $1.1 million to WFSU. At the same time, 367 corporate partners donated just under $1 million to help fund the station's activities. WFSU leverages the approximately $1 million in E&G funding from the university into a total budget of nearly $6 million.
Thank you for calling WFSU. May I take your pledge?
As further evidence of the partnership with the community, over 500 volunteers have donated over 1,500 hours of time in the past year to ensure WFSU's ability to continue providing lifelong learning experiences for the residents of more than 20 North Florida counties.
Thank you for going, WFSU. Have a great day.
From Live Oak to Destin, WFSU delivers the best in news, education, and information with unbelievable support from those we serve.
University Relations, in partnership with our colleagues across the institution, managed a number of high-profile engagement and outreach activities during the past quarter, some of which are listed here. Commencement is a time of celebration for our students, as well as an opportunity to recognize the achievements of exceptional faculty and alumni. Professor Tommy Wright, who served on the music faculty for many years, received an honorary doctorate at the August commencement.
I, Eric J. Barron, hereby confer upon you, Thomas G. Wright, the honorary degree of Doctor of Music.
I thought that we'd do the fight song, and I ask you to join me in singing. I think the words are printed in the program.
So fight, 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 fight to victory, our Seminoles from Florida State. F-L-O-R-I-D-A-S-T-A-T-E. Florida State, Florida State, Florida State. You've got to fight.
Partnering with Undergraduate Studies Division, the 80th anniversary of Florida State's honors program was highlighted in a number of promotional activities, including a commemorative video and anniversary logo. The new Health and Wellness Center represents an innovative partnership between the Division of Student Affairs and the College of Nursing. University Relations staff collaborated with these units to dedicate this much-needed facility.
We see this as a very purposeful building in the center of campus that can serve many, many needs of students, including their physical, their spiritual, their wellness, and their intellectual growth on campus.
We have faculty who practice at Thagard Health Center with student services, and also our doctoral students, our family nurse practitioner students, have clinicals in the clinics here also.
Having everything in the centralized location, again, they can go to the doctor, they can go and they can work out, they can just head upstairs to the nutritionist. It works absolutely perfect for that, and I feel like they can get a lot more done in just one trip, which makes them more likely to do that.
University Communications continues to develop and implement strategies to enhance Florida State's national reputation. Within this framework, the team is focused on awareness of key initiatives in preparation for the fundraising campaign. As highlighted in past presentations, the institution's brand development process is a collaboration between staff, faculty, students, and alumni. We are closing in on the last phase of the development process. and in recent weeks have conducted a final phase of focus groups and listening sessions, including external and internal audiences and constituencies. One of the cornerstones of the brand platform is monitoring the effectiveness of an integrated and strategic approach. Here are a few highlights of the types of metrics captured for September as a result of media pitches, advisories, editorial visits, and promotion of faculty and student achievements. Media pitches aligned with trending topics such as the election, economic crisis, or medical advances in HIV are resulting in significant media placement as highlighted here. Dr. Kazini, Director of the Center for Hispanic Marketing and Communication, serves as an expert to discuss Florida Hispanic vote in the presidential election in the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, the Ledger, and National Journal. Professor James Dwortney and 2 other economists published a report that found the United States continues to drop in economic freedom. Professor Jonathan Dennis's explorations of gene-controlling effects of addictive drugs in pursuit of new HIV treatments were featured in several science media outlets. Working in partnership with the director of the Veterans Center, Colonel Billy Francis, University Relations and University Communications are delivering support for a number of key university initiatives, such as the Student Veteran Film Festival and Florida State's Student Veteran Transition Strategy. Focused on Florida State as the most veteran-friendly university in the country, messaging is focused on communicating a sense of place for student veterans, as well as raise awareness of and appreciation for university services, programs, and support.
Florida State University's student veterans and the Interfraternity Council are proud to present a special campus screening of the critically acclaimed new film, The Invisible War.
Most Americans assume that there is access to a system of justice.
We're a country who needs every good soldier to make sure we have a strong military defense.
I'm Ryan Taylor, a student and a veteran, and I hope you'll join us for a special one-time screening of The Invisible War.
Visit vetfilmfest.fsu.edu to purchase tickets.
Thank you for your time and for your support. Go Noles!
In early November, we launched an innovative faculty experts online tool for media to seek out and leverage the expertise of Florida State faculty. Media will be able to identify experts using a number of intuitive search formats, including, as you see on the left navigation, faculty aligned with trending topics or via specific search terms. With the advent of Hurricane Sandy, Florida State faculty have been quoted or participated in interviews with NBC News and the Washington Post. Numerous other high-profile national media outlets are in the process of finalizing their stories, which will include additional Florida State experts. We continue to grow the university's social media reputation and maintain an extraordinary positive sentiment rating of 93%. As you can see from the graphs, illustrating Facebook and Twitter, respectively, our reach, audience engagement, and growth have all increased exponentially over the past year. Social media tactics are now a component of most university communication activities, from commencement to research news to student achievement to crisis and issues management to launching new institutional initiatives, and the numbers tell the stories. Indicative of this upward trajectory are the steady number of engaged users per month. The new institutional message is another example of social media efforts. In the 4 weeks since we launched the 30-second spot on FSU's YouTube page, it's had more than 21,500 plays. The spot was launched the afternoon of the Clemson game as an exclusive to our fans. In that one day, the spot had over 4,500 plays. And with 60% of all plays taking place on mobile devices and Facebook, we're confident our social media strategy, reaching people when and where they're sure to see it, is a success. I can't help but smile as I share with you this next example of collaboration and leveraging the impressive talents of our students and the College of Motion Picture Arts. The video explains it all.
Slates in, guys. Pictures up. Let's roll camera, please. Action. Yeah, that'll be amazing. That was good. That was a good take.
The institutional message is just the jargon for that 30-second spot that we get to show at football games and we use for other venues.
Roll camera.
My name is Zachary Johnson. I'm from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm a BFA film student here at the film school at the FSU, and I co-directed and co-produced this institutional spot with my good friend John Wickstrom.
Okay, awesome. Great.
My name is John Wickstrom, and I co-directed and co-produced the institutional message, along with Zachary Johnson helping the rest of directing and producing with me, and Don, who was on the camera side of things.
And it's okay if he veers off at the end because we're coming out of it before that.
My name is Idan Menon. I was born in New York City and lived there until I came down here for college, and my role was a cinematographer in this institutional spot.
You okay? Ready? Yes, sir.
This is a story of creativity and inspiration. It's a story about Florida State University, who we are as an institution, and what we value. We wanted to take our iconic images that everyone's familiar with and combine them with our academic greatness.
We are setting up for Osceola getting on the horse.
And go, Drake.
We also wanted to include our students, some of the finest in the country, from the Film School, College of Music, and School of Theater.
Let's see how that looks.
This is an opportunity for our students and for Florida State to really shine.
He's a good performer, too. Even with good actors, it takes 4 or 5 takes.
Yeah, and usually they start demanding food after a bit.
John and I came onto the project when we were approached by the dean of the film school to sort of further help visualize this project that the university was working on, and asked us to sort of co-direct this spot for the university, and of course we were on board all the way.
That was excellent with the spirit. Yeah, it was perfect. Osceola and Renegade are not mascots. They are a symbol. And they are a good symbol because they embody the university's values of respect, competition, and preeminence.
What we hope the spot does is capture the essence of Florida State University, its students, its faculty, alumni, and demonstrates the values of Florida State University in a compelling and memorable visual way.
Our hope is when you watch this institutional message, you take away a greater sense of who Florida State University is.
Yeah.
All right, let's play it.
That looks nice.
By the way, FSU students also contributed the voiceover narration, the music, and the visual effects. This is a really nice added benefit which speaks highly of our students and our alumni.
Round of applause.
I think that'll work.
Yeah. I think we succeeded in creating something compelling and different, something that people can really look at and say, I want to go to that school, or I'm a part of that university.
I think we pulled it off. We had a lot of talented people working on it, and I think it's going to be a bold and memorable university message, and I like it.
I think it's fantastic. Really feels like Florida State.
This is a picture wrap for Renegade. Round of applause.
This is something that this institution can be really proud of.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And without further ado,
a spirit roams these parts. A spirit of respect, competition, and academic greatness. Some call our spirit myth. Others call it legend. We call it Florida State University.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
You know, I just have to comment you know, anytime I see another president, I feel like saying, well, so what company did you hire to do your institutional message? And how much did you spend? Because these students pitched this idea to me like I was a client, and here's what they wanted to do. And when I asked them questions, they had their answers ready. And they said, well, everybody gets up and goes and gets a beverage when the institutional message comes up there, because every single institutional message in the country shows the university gate with students walking through it, and then there's the obligatory picture of students in a laboratory, and they're all the same. And our objective is to have people say, what is this? What's going on here? And want to watch it, and as well as deliver this this wonderful message about competition and academic greatness. But you get such a kick out of it also because not only are the students doing all this and arranging it and work through it, but the sound stage of the university is full of dirt. I mean, just as an example. And they had to get the dirt in there and out of there so the horse could be on dirt in the film. And so you could see these little flecks of dirt giving part of the visual effects, which was part of their design. The College of Motion Picture Arts wouldn't let them bring any powered vehicle in there. So there's nothing like having your producers carrying bags of dirt one by one and dumping them into the sound studio. I asked them where the dirt went, and they said, you probably don't want to really know the answer to that question. But at any rate, how extraordinary that your students can produce something like that. This is just, I mean, a huge source of pride, I think, for all of us, and great collaboration between Liz's group and the students in the College of Film to produce that. Something to be proud of. Sorry for that extra added.
No, it's good commentary. Any more comments? It is quite a production.
Chairman, this is a public relations matter, and I think congratulate you on everything you're doing. But I heard in the President's report we went up to 42nd in the rankings while dropping in funding resources per student. Somewhere there's a story in there that talks about value and efficiency, and I really think it's a public relations effort to take advantage of that. We keep getting accused of being, not us, the universities in general of being inefficient. And I think this university is an extraordinary example of efficiency. And I don't know if that's got to rank sort of first or second or in the top 5 of major research universities in the country relative to rankings relative to revenue resources per student. So somewhere there's a story that needs to be told, not only to our students, our parents, our constituencies, our legislature, and our state. So I'd like to maybe ask Liz or challenge her to come with a plan around communicating that story if the President...
I think it's a great idea. It's a super message, you're right, to gain with fewer dollars.
Okay. We'll do so. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Good job. Now we have an update on athletics from Randy Spettman, our Director of Athletics. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I could best describe what's happened in the athletic department as comprehensive excellence. After last year's great finish of number 5 in the Learfield Directors' Cup, it'll appear at this time of the year we're in line to go that way again. Our women's soccer team, who has been rated number 1 in a major portion of the year, is the regular season conference champion, and this Friday night will play the University of Virginia in the semifinals of the tournament. Our football team is number 7 in the nation in the coaches poll, number 9 in the BCS, and with a couple good wins that are on the line here, we'll be in the ACC championship game on 1 December on our way to the Orange Bowl, which will be a great return and long needed to get there. Our men's basketball team is rated number 24 in the nation, our highest ranking in history, in some time in our history in that. There is an exhibition game tonight at 7 o'clock for those that are still in the area. And our women's basketball program will open on Saturday against Shorter in an exhibition game. Our women's cross-country team, number 1 in the nation, won the ACC tournament conference championship for the 5th time in a row and is in line to be the national championship, which we run in mid-November. Our men's cross-country team was number 3 in the ACC conference just a week ago, and then also in line to win the championship at the national championship. Our men's and women's tennis teams have played a series of tournaments this fall and have had one of the best falls in our history in that. Our women's swimming team is 3-0 in the ACC this year, and our men's are 3-1, so you can see that they're continuing on. So what you can see in our graduation rates have continued to increase over the course of the last couple of years. Our academic performance rate of all of our sports raised again this year, and so we're very proud of what we call the comprehensive excellence of the athletic department. As the president has said, the first week in December we will start the addition of the indoor practice facility, and we are very excited about that. Mr. Chairman, that ends my report, unless there's any questions you would like.
I was talking to that. Any comments, any questions?
Say this, Randy. You know, as I watch the other universities around the country and some of the scandals that have hit them, to achieve the level of excellence that we have here at Florida State, and with all the achievements that your department has seen, I think you're to be congratulated. I think you're doing a great job as our athletic director.
Thank you.
Well, and I have to add that it's another example of efficiency and effectiveness, which I think just sort of makes a compelling universal story. There are other programs that are in the same same financial framework that we are, but I think the total budget we report out for athletics is $78 million, and in the Director's Cup, we're bracketed at places 4 and 6 by Texas and by Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's budget for athletics is $131 million a year, and Texas's budget for athletics is $150. We're at 78, but we're right there with them in terms of producing 20 outstanding, highly competitive teams. So it's just, every time I look at any place in this university, I go, man, we deliver on a little bit of money. So, not that $78 million is little, but it's little compared to Texas, that's for sure.
Well, you're to be congratulated.
Thank you. And
Good job.
And hopefully later this week there'll be a great announcement on future schedule. Just a little tidbit of icing.
He's good.
What did you say?
In the coming week, we should have an announcement on a very exciting schedule addition in our future schedule for football. So.
Okay, any more comments? Randy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Next, we have a number of items on the consent agenda. They're included in your material package as items A through K. These will be taken up as one item unless any member wants to pull out an item to be considered separately. There is one item, I think it's item H, that I'm going to have Carolyn Egan, our attorney, make some comments about. Slight change.
Yesterday, the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Business made one small change to this item. If you would go to item H, the third page, under the section entitled Independence, it previously said the board's Finance, Business, and Audit Committee will review and make recommendations to the university president regarding potential hiring and termination of the chief audit officer. The change made yesterday by the committee would make that sentence read, the Board of Trustees Finance, Business, and Audit Committee Chair will work in concert with the university president regarding potential hiring and termination of the chief audit officer. The rest of the paragraph remains the same. Not a terribly substantive change, but we did want to point that out since the committee made that revision. So it may remain a part of the consent agenda, or if any member wants to pull it off, that's an option.
It's not a major change, but we felt you should be aware of that issue. Item K, do we want to do that separately, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do item K separately. So we will remove that from the consent agenda. Otherwise, You have them, A through K. Are there any questions on items A through, I should say, J on the consent agenda? Is there a motion that we approve the consent agenda as modified?
So moved, Trustee Assembly.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, show the consent agenda approved as modified. Next, we have a report from Garnett Stokes, Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs. She's talking to Bob Bradley. Bob, whenever you're ready. Oh. Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be here with you this morning. I just have a few things that I wanted to update you on, and then Bob Bradley will be here to give an update on our SACS reaccreditation and quality enhancement plan. The first thing I wanted to do was mention a little more fully a couple of things that President Barron indicated about some changes in staffing in my office. So I want to introduce my two new associate vice presidents, although one of them is in class right now. I hired these two people to fill positions vacated by my colleagues Joe Nassari and Joe McElrath. And these are positions that focus on the promotion of interdisciplinary teaching and research, oversight and facilitation of our internationalization efforts, building construction, renovation, space assignments, strategies for improving student success, career development and job placement, and pursuit of innovations in teaching and learning. So the first person that I hired was Janet Kistner. She began her career at Florida State as an assistant professor of psychology and was promoted up through the ranks. She's a developmental psychologist who focuses on learning and behavior problems in children. She was named chair of the Department of Psychology in 2002, and she was such a successful chair that they kept changing the bylaws so that she could serve subsequent terms because they had term limits in their department. They're not very happy with me that I stole her basically and brought her into onto my leadership team. And I'll refer later to her efforts with others on the career development job side. Bruce Locke is the second person, and I believe Bruce is here. I'll ask that he stands. Bruce was named an associate vice president who will begin on November 16th. He began his career at the FSU College of Engineering as an assistant professor, working his way up the ranks. His research is in plasma reaction engineering and metabolic engineering in muscle, and the National Science Foundation currently supports his research program. He was named chair of the Department of Chemical and Biomedical Engineering in 2005. He's a distinguished research professor, and he's won several teaching and research awards. So I am truly delighted to have Janet and Bruce as new members of my leadership team. Also previously mentioned by Gary Tyson, since our last meeting in person of this board, I named Dean Sally McCrory as our Vice President for Faculty Development and Advancement. This position, as was mentioned by Gary, further elevated what was formerly considered the Dean of Faculty's position, and the position was elevated to better promote and facilitate faculty development and success. So I'm delighted to have Sally McCrory as a vice president in my office. As was already mentioned, she'd served as a very successful dean for several years. We have a number of things going on, of course, in academic affairs, and several of them were mentioned in the Faculty Senate report. We are focused on trying to promote and break down barriers to interdisciplinary teaching and research. We are managing issues related to distance learning and the initiatives both on our campus and across the state. And of course, we are working with the legislation that's focused on our general education requirements. And I'm delighted to have my Dean of Undergraduate Studies so heavily involved in working with the various universities and colleges on that. But another major thing that we have obviously been doing that President Barron referred to earlier was our attempt to begin building back the faculty. We have had major losses of faculty over the last few years due to other institutions rating our faculty, our inability due to budget to really replace faculty that have been lost. Our colleges had been very conservative with their resources out of fear of what the next year might bring. But last year, when President Barron and I were sitting at the new faculty orientation and realizing that we were not building back our tenured and tenure track ranks, we knew that our pipeline was going to be seriously compromised. And so the colleges really stepped up, and for the first time, as President Barron mentioned, we hired 21 more faculty than we had lost. So we hired 71 new tenured and tenure track faculty. But from my perspective, that's really just the beginning, because we really have to both invest in our strengths. We need to promote the big ideas and make our investments there, and we have to begin rebuilding that pipeline of new faculty. So we did allocate the funds for the Entrepreneurial University to hire faculty who will open up business classes to non-business students. We made an investment of more than $1 million recurring dollars for up to 8 faculty lines in energy and materials. And that's just for salary. When you hire in these big science areas, this collaboration across engineering and arts and sciences, there's another investment in the startup packages. So we're talking about several $1 million in non-recurring funds that we will invest to make successful hires in energy and materials. We're also investing about $500,000 recurring dollars for successful longevity. So I'm excited about moving forward with the hiring of a director and staff support, as well as 2 faculty, to begin building the Successful Longevity Initiative. We will start focused on cognitive aging, which is where we have tremendous strength, and we will be able to make a splash in this area, and it will really showcase what FSU has been able to contribute and will be able to contribute to an important area of aging. And then, as President Barron told this group, I think back in June, we were going to focus on areas of greatest need. And so what I set out to do was to look at, across the campus, where did we have tremendous student demand, where did we need to make investments because of faculty losses and changes in student demand, where could we make investments in STEM, and where did we have potential to really build our research portfolio, build our support from the national agencies that support scholarship. And what I ended up doing was providing funds from the provost and president to several departments and colleges on campus. The College of Arts and Sciences alone was given 14 lines. 2 of those were placed in chemistry, 1 in computer science, 4 were included in our Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences department, 1 of those as the chair, because we're trying to build that area and do a national search for the leadership of that combined department that some of you will remember some time ago was combined from 3 separate departments. So this is an area of where there's been tremendous growth in student demand and significant success in grant funding. We have 2 in math, focused on financial and computational math, 2 in physics, one of our very strong departments, 1 in statistics, and 2 in psychology. So those are the ones that went to arts and sciences. I also provided faculty lines in criminology and criminal justice. Communication information is going to hire 2 people in social media. Visual arts, theater, and dance was given a position in digital media, which is in fact a STEM discipline within the arts. 2 in College of Human Sciences, tremendous growth in exercise physiology and exercise science, which are also STEM fields within that college. 4 in social sciences, 2 of them going to political science, 2 in economics. Many of you may know that those are 2 extremely strong programs with a lot of student demand. Position in social work, and a couple more in engineering. So we have probably invested more money than we have trying to build back our faculty, but we see this as absolutely essential to the future of this university. I've had to get ready for the inevitable partner hiring situations that we face whenever we recruit faculty. Of course, we're working in a national and international market, and when you're recruiting tenured and tenure-track faculty, you have to be prepared for those times when, to get the right person, you have to accommodate and make plans to bring on their spouses. So it's just the nature of the beast now to be nationally competitive in doing faculty recruitment. I expect, and what I am aiming for, is that we will hire 100 new faculty in 2013. The colleges are using their resources to add to what the provost and president have been able to provide. And so I've pressed, I've set a goal that's pretty high, but I'm really hoping that we will be able to pull this off with some really serious recruiting over the next few months. So we have launched most of these hires and are really optimistic about what it's going to mean for us. Now, it has brought to light something that we know has been a serious issue. We hire faculty at market rates. We, in most of our departments, we hire our new faculty at what we call OSU plus 10. That is, we have a survey of faculty salaries that are done by Oklahoma State University across the country, and we always want to be able to get the very best people in any particular discipline. And so we hire at competitive starting salaries, and it has been the reason why we have been so successful in hiring in many of our departments. But it does create and really focus our current faculty on issues of salary inversion and compression. Because often we're hiring faculty at competitive rates, and those rates can be higher than the current salaries of our associate and sometimes even our full professors. So you can imagine that we have another challenge that we are needing to manage at the same time that we really start building back our faculty. So I wanted to give you some information about that, and I also wanted to give you a little information that I didn't get a chance to share with you in the workshop yesterday. And that is, probably many of you know, that this fall our College of Motion Pictures Arts began its first class of students in West Palm, majoring in our new major in animation and digital arts. The new major underwent a lengthy and detailed review process by our accrediting body, SACS. And we received notification of SACS approval on August 8th, which was just in time for our first class of 27 students to start in that program down in West Palm. The education of these students includes the completion of the major, which leads to the BFA in Motion Picture Arts from FSU, along with separate content that was offered by the Digital Domain Institute. Soon after our students began in West Palm, the Digital Domain Media Group filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The filing negatively affected hundreds of employees in Florida, and of course it did raise inevitable questions about public and private partnerships that I'm sure people in the state will address. But for us at FSU, our primary focus has had to be on the education of our students majoring in animation and digital arts, making sure that we deliver the same rigorous course content and learning outcomes as we expected to deliver from the beginning. Our students have seen no change in their program of study at any time since the bankruptcy filing, and our College of Motion Picture Arts has recently hired faculty who taught in the Institute, who are also professionals in the industry, to provide the technical training requirement of the major originally offered with DDI. Many here may not realize that it was FSU faculty who consulted with DDI to develop the very content offered by that institute for our students. At this time, we remain in a holding pattern until the bankruptcy is resolved. Given all of the events surrounding the bankruptcy, we need time to complete an in-depth internal assessment of the extent to which these events affect our major for the long term and our research institute, and to identify and implement the most effective course going forward. We will approach our internal assessment with the goals of providing our students with a quality major in keeping with the college's national reputation, meeting the guidelines and criteria established by our accrediting body that oversees this major in West Palm, and ensuring that our major and research institute continue to meet the needs of the state economy, especially the need to create high-paying jobs. Our primary focus, let me repeat, is looking after the best interest of our students. The College of Motion Picture Arts was established in response to Florida's legislature and governor, and its programs are too important to the state's economy and its job growth for us to do anything that compromises their quality. So I wanted to give you that update, give you an update on our recruitment efforts. I also want to mention that, again, go back to Janet Kistner's new role as an Associate VP. There was a lot of discussion yesterday about the need to focus on careers and job placement. We've had some wonderful work done on this campus through Student Affairs in our Career Center. We have hired, as Eric mentioned yesterday, someone in alumni who will help with networking. And now my Associate Vice President, Janet Kistner, will be working across the campus then as we really coordinate our efforts toward collecting the information that we really need to establish how successful our students are as they complete their degrees at the bachelor's level and above in the many disciplines that are represented on our campus. Another thing that we're working really hard on in academic affairs is our SACS reaccreditation and our quality enhancement plan. And Vice President Bradley will make that presentation, but before I invite him up for that, I thought I would give you an opportunity to ask me any questions. So that completes my portion of this report.
Okay, any questions? Jim?
Mr. Chairman. Garnet, if you could briefly discuss the drop in enrollment that we talked about yesterday at the graduate level and specifically law, because I'm sure some of the board members aren't aware of that, and we need them to understand what happened.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yesterday in our Academic Affairs Committee, we had an update on our enrollments, and what was apparent in that update is that we have seen a drop in our number of graduate students in fall of 2012, as well as a drop in our number of students in the law school. And they're somewhat perhaps separate issues. In our College of Law, they're really facing what is a nationwide decline in the number of students applying to law schools. There have been articles across the country highlighting the fact that students are not pursuing law as a profession at the same levels that they had been. And law school rankings are greatly affected by the quality of the student class. And the College of Law asked us for permission to reduce their enrollment so that they could keep their metrics up for their student body because we knew that that would be compromised if we held them to the same enrollment standard that we had given them before. So they dropped from 220 to 180 as their target for enrollment of a first-year class at the College of Law. And they would like to have an even larger drop. Other universities, to keep their metrics up and the quality of their class up, have made similar drops. And so this is something we're going to have to manage as we see what happens to demand for law training in the law profession. At the graduate level, I think there are some converging issues here and some future concerns. One is that we graduated, I think, a record number of students in this past year. And there has been tremendous push toward successful completion of graduate degrees. So we have really targeted trying to help our students finish in a timely fashion. In fact, graduate programs are now being evaluated in part on how quickly students get that PhD. So we've really pushed that and been able to get students through their programs more effectively and efficiently. So we graduated a lot of students, and that contributes in part to the lower levels of enrollment. But the future issue is that we are seeing nationwide apparent drops in students who are applying to graduate school. We're not sure that's coming, but at a recent conference, our graduate school dean learned that the number of students who have taken the GRE has dropped dramatically. That suggests that there may be fewer students applying to graduate school and that they're applying to fewer graduate schools. And so we are having to work to figure out how we're going to keep our graduate enrollment up. We have serious issues with our stipends that we pay for graduate students. We are not competitive in many of our disciplines, and that is one of our priorities to try to become more competitive, because it will be essential to keeping our doctoral level enrollment up. It also is what contributes to the reputation of the institution, and it goes hand in hand with our ability to recruit the very best faculty to FSU. So we're trying to monitor the graduate enrollment situation. We have made investments in health insurance. We're increasing how much we provide those graduate students to try to help with the financial picture for them and to be more competitive on the graduate student side. But these are things that we're just needing to stay on top of. Does that get at most of what we?
Yep, thank
okay.
You. Good update. Ed, did you have a question?
I think Trustee Duda did.
Oh, I was wondering, in your engineering, you said you hired 2?
Actually, they're hiring more than that in engineering. I was talking about the funds that I was providing from the president and provost budgets.
I just wondered, when you do this hiring, our engineering school is with FAMU, right?
It is a combined program, yes.
It's a combined, so do you?
We have separate. We have faculty that are budgeted with FSU, and the lines we're providing contribute to the entire college, but budgetarily they're in FSU's budget. So they are FSU faculty.
Any more questions? Mark, you recognized.
Garnet, I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned about the current professors and some things you're trying to do, or you have as a priority to increase their salaries. What are you thinking along the lines of doing, and do you have those resources?
Okay, so and this is something that's in the annual review and wasn't completed. It said that it was under negotiation, that I hope by the time we would be together that it would be concluded. So we did conclude our negotiations. I don't think it's ratified yet.
We have one more minor issue to wrap up, but we've agreed on the pay issues.
So basically, this is the way that we're looking at it. You hire faculty at what we call OSU plus 10, competitive to bring top faculty here. And then, because we've waited for the state or not had increases, we give very few raises. So in 6 years, we had a 3% raise, and they also lost benefits during that time. And so it's pretty clear the faculty don't even count that one as a raise, even though I counted it as a raise because we planned it a year before the benefit change. Okay, so this is basically what we negotiated. To have a little bit bigger bump when someone's promoted from assistant to associate or associate to full. This is saying basically you've done a remarkable job. We're now promoting you, and a little bit more of a bump, so they're not so far away from what the national averages are. We have it now so that the provost can look at faculty members that have had a distinguished career and who have produced a remarkable amount of research and creative activity and superb teachers that she can name them as distinguished professor or assistant professor with distinction or associate professor with distinction. And before, we've given them a little bit of cash. Now the provost can actually give them a salary bump. So this is an effort to make sure that those faculty that are truly meritorious and have done exceptional jobs, those are the people other schools are trying to steal. And so we keep those people and reward them for being exceptional, and they don't lose that even as they're promoted. And the third thing is a capability to take someone who wins a major award. So I get a Guggenheim, tremendous honor. I get a Fulbright, tremendous honor that the provost can increment their salary when they get that award. So there's a very strong merit component here in this process. We have a little bit of merit divided between departmental rules and dean's discretion that is there. There is nothing across the board. There's nothing that's cost of living. All of those things are basically, we're not in an environment financially or politically in which we can do that. We're not going to do it. It's very strongly focused on merit and reward of excellence and to keep those faculty that are strong. Okay, so as the General Counsel said, another element on a different topic to negotiate, but then this package will go for ratification, but it's been agreed to by the union negotiators. There is one other element here, and that is that coming in the door, we had an agreement which provided faculty that had highly compressed salaries compared to junior hires with a 9% budget increase. The way it was written largely made it a budget increase that was focused on longevity. Very difficult to implement. Bob Bradley and I sat down and tried to figure out how to do it, and we really had a great deal of difficulty doing it. Plus, we didn't have enough money to actually implement it. So we were implementing only a portion of it at a time with huge binders and a lot of faculty effort just to be disappointed. And just every year we were going to get behind because there'd be more and more faculty that would be in those ranks. So what we did was we traded that for the faculty to get 3%, not to have to do these binders. They have to be performing. But then we basically said every time they go up for post-tenure review, so once our faculty are tenured, every 7 years we review them to see whether they're performing at a standard that's expected for Florida State University. So instead of just giving them these dollars at 9%, we decreased that. Significant amount of money was taken off the table for that. But instead, now we've tied a salary increment to their review after they've been tenured. And so I think this is a much better way to proceed because it'll be reviewed every 7 years. So there's something out there to look forward to, but it is tied to a performance review. So our view is that this is moving us in a much stronger merit-based reward system. And the other thing that I should point out to you is that we didn't use any increased tuition dollars to fund this. This dollar amount that we're spending is basically the fact that we have a smaller number of faculty, but they're teaching a larger number of credit hours, and larger than they were teaching when we had a larger faculty. And so those are now permanent dollars coming into the universities because they've been teaching that higher level of credit hours for multiple years. So our thought is our faculty are working a lot harder to teach, smaller faculty teaching higher number of credit hours, that those are the dollar amounts that was put into this merit effort. And so what you saw in there as was a proposed plan to you, I don't know, 6 months ago when I presented this focus on merit, that we have come to the end point of the negotiations, and I believe this will help us keep our very strong faculty. And there will be a number of people that are disappointed because there's no cost of living increase and there is no across-the-board raises, and the vast majority of these dollars are really focused on rewarding people who are functioning at a very high level. I hope that's a good answer to the question.
Mark.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Chairman, I just wanted to offer to Garnet, if in your recruiting efforts, particularly on the spouse side, if you need some support from the Chamber and the Economic Development Council or from the hospital, who are also very involved in recruitment, and even welcoming introductions to the community, I'm happy to help facilitate that in any way.
That is wonderful.
Great.
Thank you so much. Very, very nice.
Thank you, Susie. Okay, Dr. Stokes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good report. Now we have a report on accreditation from Dr. Bob Bradley, Vice President for Planning and Programs. Good morning, Dr. Bradley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. I'm here to talk about two things, mostly the Quality Enhancement Plan, but also you'll recall that we are now beginning the process for reaffirmation of our accreditation. We're accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, the Commission on Colleges. That's important because you can't get federal grant monies unless you're accredited, and you can't get federal financial aid unless you're accredited. The accrediting process has gotten more elaborate and rigorous over the years, so now I'm thinking of hiring the film school to do it. And get those students over here. Anyway, let's see if last year I talked to you a little about this. We're starting a process that culminates in December of 2014. That's when our reaffirmation will be decided on by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, December 2014. We will have an on-site visit by a SACS team in March of 2014. They will want to talk to some of the board members. So we'll probably be asking some of you to do that in March. Our actual compliance certification is due September of 2013, and then we have another requirement that I'll talk about in a second. There are, as you recall, 81 specific areas where you have to be reviewed, about 1,000 questions in all, grouped into 3 large areas. There's a set of core requirements that you have to meet. If you don't meet any of those, you are not reaffirmed. Secondly, there's a series of standard requirements that you have to pass, and then a series of federal requirements that you have to meet. Increasingly, the federal government is the one who is driving this process and all these requirements from SACS. As part of the core requirements, there is this thing known as the Quality Enhancement Plan. I've put up some of the language from SACS there so you can see how the SACS accreditors speak. This is a requirement that's number 2.12. It says that you have to have an acceptable quality enhancement plan that includes an institutional process to identify key issues emerging from institutional assessment, focusing on learning outcomes or the environment supporting learning outcomes, accomplishing the mission of the university. We have pages and pages of things that sound just like that. We have organized ourselves to tackle this problem in a series of ways. Specifically, we have a leadership team that's headed by the president and the provost and has some other the vice presidents on it. We have a compliance certification team that has 26 folks from across campus who are working on a lot of the narrative and gathering documents. Each one of those has a person working with them. We have a review team of 9 people who review their efforts. And then we have something called a quality enhancement development committees. Actually, we started off with a first phase committee that was chaired by me last year. I think I told you about it. We were just beginning. We had 24 members from all over campus, and the goal of that committee was to identify a topic. So we began last September. We worked all through this through September and into the early spring this year, and we came up with a topic that I want to tell you about. But we have to submit our plan to SACS, the Quality Enhancement Plan, as a separate entity next December. That will be one of the main foci of the on-site committee when it comes in 2014. Last time we did the lead initiative, and quite a bit came out of that. We're hoping quite a bit will come out of this process. The way we've organized the production of the Quality Enhancement Plan is we've divided up into 2 committees. First, we had a fairly broad committee, as I just showed you, with 24 members, and that they were supposed to come up with topic identification and begin the process of getting broad input from across campus. But they were also supposed to identify what were the assessments on which we needed some improvement, which would form the basis for the topic. Then we would, once that topic was identified, we'd have another committee set up, which would be slightly narrower, and they would be charged with coming up with the plan. And we have done that. The provost has set up a second committee at this point. The first phase committee, one of the ideas here is that you have to come up with viable topics. As I'll tell you in a few seconds, one of the things that's required of the Quality Enhancement Plan is you have to have a budget that is commensurate with completing that plan. So that means that next December, or before December actually, the provost will be presenting and president will be presenting to you a plan that will require resources. Not resources in 2013, not resources in 2014, resources in 2015. You cannot begin the implementation of the plan until it's been approved by SACS. So the process is elaborate, and it begins with the idea of what sort of topics should you have. We had a committee that was meeting regularly, at least once a month, considering various topics. A fair amount of research was done on various assessments of the university, including how we did on things like the National Survey of Student Engagement. We looked at how our students are doing on national exams. We looked at how they're doing on the collegiate learning assessment. We looked at things such as that. And then what we did is we identified a few areas where it seemed as though we had problems. Specifically, we know that on national exams, by and large, our students do not do as well as you would expect. In part, that has something to do with the disciplinary mix here at the university. The more quantitative courses your students take, the higher their scores on the national exam. The larger your engineering number of engineering students, the higher you do. That's part of it, but it's also partly related to other things that we were trying to look at. So we identified a series of things, such as the inability to use technology across the discipline, the results of critical thinking on the college learning assessment, and we identified a whole series of potential themes. They ranged from promoting a culture of discovery down to improving the outcomes associated with the use of the vast number of new electronic resources in the library. We debated this for a while, and we got it down to, whoops, did I go too far? No. We debated this for a while, and we thought about how we would go about, tackling what the campus thought. We finally settled on a survey, and we surveyed 6 themes amongst the faculty, students, and staff. Specifically, whether or not we should devote more energy to the students' mastery of the use of information technology in disciplines ranging from digital media to interior design, all of which are highly technical these days. Whether or not there should be more research opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students. Whether or not we should focus more on the application of learning to real-world problems. Whether there should be an improvement in critical thinking skills, whether we should improve their writing skills, or whether we should step back and get a different approach to the way in which we do STEM on campus. So we sent out a survey. We got almost 3,000 returns back, 2,800 returns, a little over 500 from faculty, nearly 600 from staff, nearly 1,200 from undergraduates, 540 from graduate students. And what we found when we did that is that the items that got the most approval, highest rankings, were critical thinking and what we called entrepreneurial thinking and research and fostering innovation. The way it broke down is that the faculty, the staff, the graduate students thought that critical thinking was the most important. The undergraduates were more in favor of entrepreneurial thinking in research and fostering innovation. But the votes were pretty close. I put the numbers up here, for they're keyed to the previous numbers. No matter how you did it, we tried a number of different ways of looking at this survey. The results always came out the same. It was pretty much the case that people were interested in critical thinking and to a slightly lesser extent in thinking about real-world application of problems and perhaps entrepreneurial thinking. So the committee took those results. We met on those for a couple of times as well, and we finally narrowed it down to our recommendation to the president, which was to improve critical thinking skills among undergraduates, especially the third-year and fourth-year students who are in their disciplines, and graduate students by promoting and assessing the use of creative thinking and research as key skills in the solution of real-world problems. That was the recommendation. We gave it to the president and the provost. They met on it. They decided to go with it. Now, what does all that mean? There are a number of definitions of critical thinking out there. Probably the most accepted one is this. Believe it or not, in academia, there's an institute on anything, so there's a critical thinking institute out there. But they define it in the fashion on the screen. But by and large, what it means is that at some point you're going to have to address the clarity, accuracy, precision, consistency, relevance, use of sound evidence, good reasoning, the breadth and fairness of the opinions that you raise. And so what we did when we forwarded the recommendation to the second committee is we suggested to them a couple of questions. What knowledge, skills, and attitudes are so important in the development of our students within a discipline that we have to encourage them in our students and nurture them to improve? And secondly, we have to inculcate in our students a clear sense of the criteria that a reasonable person should use in evaluating what's happening in that discipline and what should be learned. So the idea is to produce a plan that would help improve the learning of our students in these areas. Now, what does we've set up another committee. The committee has to produce a plan that has all these elements in it. In other words, this is a rubric, this is a set of criteria developed by SACS that is given to the reviewers. And they come in and they go to those things on the left up there, the institutional process down to overall evaluation of accountability, the QEP. They have a little checklist, and they assign you a certain number of points. And they see if you did the things on the right. And if you did enough of the things on the right well enough, then they accept your plan. If you didn't do enough, then they give you a whole series of recommendations that you have a couple months to respond to and get into SACS. So the group that's been charged with coming up with this plan is being chaired by Professor David Van Winkle. He was at the meeting yesterday, but he's actually teaching right now, so he can't come. He's a professor of physics. The committee is a little smaller than the previous group, but it still has students on it and has still pretty broad representation across from campus. That committee is meeting every 2 weeks. This turns out to be a fairly contentious area. And as you might imagine, faculty members have a lot to say about what constitutes critical thinking and how to go about doing it. But there are some things that I especially, and I'm on the committee, I say that they have to keep in mind. We have to be more specific. We have to be very, very specific about what we're going to do and how we're going to go about doing this. We can't do everything. We're going to, not everybody's turf will be able to get additional money. Critical thinking happens across the curriculum at the university. We can't approve everything. We have to narrow and be specific. We have to get a lot of people involved in this. And that means we have to get a lot of faculty and students and staff excited about being involved in this. And we cannot lose sight of the requirement on outcomes. But we can't do what we did last time in the LEAD program. Last time in the LEAD program, we had 44 outcomes. Oh my God, that almost killed us. Because you have to monitor each one of those outcomes every year. And you have to keep monitoring it for 5 years, and you have to send in reports to SACS. Laura Osteen, who's not here, it about drove her crazy. But fortunately, she started out somewhat crazy, so it didn't. It wasn't as big effect as some other places.
And she's not here?
She's not here, no.
Yeah, doing this behind her back.
Yeah, I wouldn't have attacked her.
It's on video.
Yeah, right. We have to, at the end of this show, we have the ability to execute this plan. And what that will come down to in large measure is a set of organizational directives that we have to lay out. But it also means we're going to have to lay out money. But we know right now we don't have a lot of money. The typical QEP by the typical research university, they spend $500 per student. Okay, that's $6 million recurring. That's how much they typically spend. We don't have $6 million recurring. So the provost has given us the charge, and we will bring to you probably, but it may go through the president. It will definitely go through the president and the provost. I don't know what form they'll give it to you, is to give them a series of scalable alternatives. What can you do for this much money? What can you do for that much money? How far, what sort of progress can you make for this money? Given that these can be very expensive propositions. Last time, In the leadership initiative, we not only hired people and had things going across campus, but ultimately Vice President Coburn was able to get a building to house these activities. So it wound up being a fairly expensive but very worthwhile enterprise. This can be a transformational activity on the campus. It's meant to galvanize as many people as possible. It's something that can be very exciting, and I'm hoping that this committee comes out with some recommendations that will be very appealing to you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Bradley, that was a very thorough update.
Sorry.
This process. No, it was very good. No. It was very, very good. Peggy, you have a question?
Yes, I'm curious why the QEP would start only in the third and fourth year. Why not start in the freshman and sophomore years where you have core courses to work with? Because there's no, to me, starting sooner rather than later makes more sense.
Well, there are definitely a lot of people who think that way. In fact, at the last meeting, there were people who argued you should jettison the third and fourth year approach and go back to the first year approach. But the first and second years are not the same as they used to be. You have many, many students now who are coming in with 30, sometimes up to 60 hours of credit. So a lot of people are already bypassing those first years. I think the first committee thought the important thing was to anchor this activity in the discipline rather than in general education. Get each discipline to start wrestling with what constitutes critical thinking in that discipline. This specific idea was actually the brainchild of one of the students, and he has felt very passionately that really it is important within the major to get those sort of classes and activities going. So you have had people talking about the improved use of simulation in majors to get people involved. The use of crowdsourcing as a technique to get students involved, to get collaborative teams working along the lines that Dean Patterson was talking about last night, to get students involved in real-world problem solving, and that real-world aspect was important. And that seemed to be more easily accomplished at the higher levels. And it's not just for undergraduate students. People are also thinking of what could we be doing for graduate students as well, especially amongst the graduate students. You have two large groups, the master's students and the doctoral students. Especially for the master's students, what sort of things can they do to improve their thinking? That was the reasoning of the committee. We have some committee members here. If they want to step up, they could.
Follow-up question, Peggy?
Well, it seems I understand that there's so many kids who CLEP or whatever they do, and but there's so many things that you can do with logic games and analysis that you could spread across your student body early on. That are more generally focused. You know, everything from news reports to urban myths, all kinds of things that have a very broad appeal. So I'm a proponent of the position. It's never too early to start.
Good observation.
No, well, there are people on the committee who feel that way, but it hasn't been the majority so far. They may come around to your view. It is the case that trying to infuse something across all the undergraduates where you actually pair up instructors with it is a fairly expensive proposition. So ultimately, money's going to get involved in this decision. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's just the way it is. Ultimately, you are going to have to make a decision as to how much you want to spend on this. So,
any more questions or observations? Jim?
Real quick, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Bob, the theme of critical thinking sort of implements a process to improve quality obviously. And I noticed that the outcome, the desired outcome, was the promote research, innovation, and entrepreneurial applications. Can those two be combined?
Yeah, yes. And my hunch is, I mean, I shouldn't speak for the committee, but what the heck, that's what I do. My own view is that we'll have several things going on. That we'll probably have some effort towards doing something over in the research area. We might have something along the Intel innovation type projects where students compete for grants and they do some things like this. We might have a little initiative on capstone courses, and we might have something on changing courses to more inquiry-driven courses. So right now there's a movement afoot in the sciences to change in a very basic way scientific teaching to more inquiry-based. So we might do something like that. And in addition, we'll probably have to have a faculty development aspect of this, because it doesn't do any good just to focus on the students. You also have to train faculty into new types of pedagogy. And so we'll probably do something like that. So, I think a combination will be there. What the mix will be, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any more questions? Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good job. We'll provide you any immunity from prosecution from your committee members.
Interference with Laura Osteen.
Too late.
Next, we have Mary Coburn, our Vice President for Student Affairs.
Hello.
You're recognized, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being in the Health and Wellness Center yesterday. We really appreciate you being there and having a chance to see a facility that we're so proud of. And it certainly represents our efforts to align students' mind, body, and spirit for academic success so that they can reach their goals. And so I thought it would be best today for me to emphasize some of our other wellness activities. You have a sheet at your place that is titled Health and Wellness, and on there we've highlighted some of the many activities that we have that help students make healthy choices and then, of course, impact positively their academic success. We have been for over 10 years participating in the American College Health Association National Collegiate Health Assessment. And on the bottom chart, you can see there that students tell us every year what some of the academic impediments are to their success, things that get in the way of being successful. And stress is certainly number one, with a quarter of our students saying that stress is something that's impacted their ability to be successful. But you see some nice trends in some of the other areas that are moving downward. I hope we have something to do with that, but probably not. On the back side of the sheet, you see physical activity, and so you can see our students continue to make healthy choices and participate in many of our fitness and campus recreation activities. So as our student body has risen, our participation in campus recreation has risen even more. In the middle section, titled Student Health Care, you can see that we are seeing over 60,000 student-patient visits a year. We obviously should be doing more. We are in the process of hiring more physicians and nurse practitioners in particular so that we can increase our appointment times, but we are in great demand there, and it is very difficult to hire for those positions. The next bar chart shows you that we saw probably about half of our undergraduate students last year with our Renew program, which is the peer education program on talking about mental health. And that probably contributes a little bit to our increased numbers at the University Counseling Center that we talked about last summer. And then finally, unfortunately, our victim advocate services continue to be very popular. Our crime rates are diminishing except for in the area of burglary, but I think it shows how our students are taking advantage of the victim advocate program. That can be for things like fires and things. It's not always victims of crime, it's victims of circumstances sometimes. So that's just a highlight of some of our wellness programs that we provide to students. I'd like to also highlight a couple other things that are happening on campus. This semester, of course, students, as you all are very active in the election process. The students helped us create a website, dsa.fsu.edu/elections, and everything that can be possibly advertised for elections may go on that sheet. So any student activities, organization, lectures, debates, etc., debate watching parties. They also, through the Center for Leadership and Social Change that Laura Osteen directs, they are doing a series of 5 programs that will culminate on Thursday with a big program right here at the Turnbull Center called Seminoles Decide, and it will focus on continuing to educate students about the issues, encouraging them to vote and be very active politically. And then finally, we've talked a lot about the Career Center and all of our efforts to get greater information about our seniors, what they're doing. And the Career Center has worked with the senior class to focus on a set of activities that they're calling the last 100 days. And so we're providing a lot of the career development resources, resume writing, mock interviews, et cetera, for students that we've always done, but we've packaged it as this last 100 days to really help students know if you haven't done it yet, it's really time to do it. And so we're very excited about the website and the activities. There's a bucket list on there. So things like if you haven't been to the FSU circus yet, you need to do that in your last 100 days, et cetera. And that will all culminate with a senior class brunch at the Alumni Center on the last day of classes. We will have resources there like insurance companies and things that they need to be thinking about as they go beyond our little cocoon here at the university and have to make some of those decisions for themselves. So we're very excited about the Last 100 Days program and all the things that we're doing in conjunction with academic affairs for students' career development. And that's it. Questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Now we have an update from John Carnegie, Senior Vice President for Finance and Administration.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. We have but 3 items today. The first being an informational item. We've invited Joyce Ingram, our Assistant Vice President for Human Resources, to come and give us an update on the diversity and inclusion project that's going on this campus. Joyce?
Good morning, Joyce, and welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Well, we have been very busy since the last update last September 2011. In September of last year, Susanna Miller, please stand, Susanna. She is our Director of Human Resources. She assumed responsibility for diversity and inclusion, our employee diversity and inclusion, in addition to her current responsibilities for faculty relations and our employee ombuds program. In addition, Edward Akoff continued in his role as our Supplier Diversity Director, leading our program as it relates to our small businesses in the various communities in which we do our teaching, research, and service. We created around November and December of last year a 38-member Diversity and Inclusion Council, and that is our first ever council for diversity and inclusion for Florida State University. The council consists of representatives from our faculty, our staff, and our students. We had our first meeting for our Diversity and Inclusion Council in February of last year, and then, or February of this year, and then in the spring of this year, all members of the council had the opportunity to participate in diversity and inclusion training. So we're very, very excited about that. In addition to participating in the training, they also served on 7 subcommittees in support of our diversity and inclusion initiative. Those subcommittees are led by members of FSU's Executive Council. They serve as champions and co-champions for each of the 7 key focus areas that are outlined in the plan that you have before you. We also enhanced our website for communication of our diversity brand, And the subcommittees are responsible for the development, under the leadership of Susanna Miller, of our diversity and inclusion operating plan for this fiscal year. In addition to our efforts on campus, we also received nationwide recognition for our diversity and inclusion initiative for our employees, as well as our supplier diversity program. You will be receiving a copy of NACUBO's Business Officers October issue magazine, which features Florida State University's Diversity and Inclusion Initiative and our efforts to date. So we're very proud of that recognition. Next steps will be implementation of the plan that you have before you, and the subcommittees will continue to work that plan. And in human resources, we have a saying that it's one thing to have a plan, it's another thing to work the plan, and then to work that plan flawlessly. So that is what we commit to do for Florida State University. So I want to thank you for your ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion. Dr. Barron has credited our faculty, staff, and students for being responsible for the greatness of this gem of a university. I also believe that in addition to high expectations of performance as it relates to our faculty, staff, and students, we should also embrace everything that they have to offer, and that is what we plan to do through our Diversity and Inclusion Initiative. Thank you.
Wonderful. Congratulations. That was, any questions, any comments?
I have a question. Joyce, I read this with great interest, and I noticed you had showed some decline in the graduate degrees awarded to people of diversity, females, Asians, blacks, and I would like for you to bring some specifics as to what you're doing. You continue to say that these are areas for opportunity for improvement, but I would like to see at some point, months or whatever, steps that you're taking to make these things happen.
Well, I believe the information you're referring to was also included in the equity report, and we did provide an update of the equity report through the Finance, Business, and Audit Committee. We definitely want to continue our focus on the recruitment and development and graduation of our graduate students as well as our undergraduate students. One of the 7 key focus areas under our diversity and inclusion plan focuses on recruitment and retention and development of faculty and staff. But we also have a key focus area that's dedicated to leadership, faculty, staff, and student involvement. So there will be more specific focus on the recruitment and graduation of our graduate students as well as our undergraduate students. Those 2 subcommittees are led by our provost, Garnet Stokes, and also our leadership, faculty, student, and staff involvement is led by Vice President Mary Coburn.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 other items. I'm almost apologetic coming back every board meeting to talk about our PICO list, capital outlay. But each board meeting, and you give us authorization to make some changes, we're able to submit these. We'll be doing this right up until the time we go to the legislature, which starts in March, I believe. So there may be another one after this, but we did make a few changes from what we had presented to you at our last board meeting. And I think on page 97, you'll see a chart like this. Let me tell you the few changes we've made or proposing to you. First of all, we would like to add a new item for funding, and that's a joint effort project between our Ringling, Florida State University, and New College. We've been working with them for well over a year because they have 3 chillers, we have 2 chillers. We have separate staffs that run these, and yet they share a facility. So for $1 million each, their trustees are going to be asked also to make this its 3rd priority. We believe if we can merge these 2 groups, that we both the university, Ringling and New College, share in the use of these 5 chillers, and to combine our staffs, we think our return on investment will be 3 years or less. So it's a project that the legislature has shown great interest in the past when we do these joint efforts, so we thought this is one we would give a high priority. A second project that we would like to modify, in the past we've been talking to Library Information Commons at some $62 million, and it focused at our Strozier Library. We brought a consultant in of recent, and the consultants have convinced us that we can take some excess facilities that we have in Dirac Library, and if we would make some modifications to it, we can give some relief to our main library and still achieve what we were hoping to achieve. And that takes the price, overall price down from $62 million to $22 million for the renovation. Now, I don't want to tell you we never want to do anything with Strozier, but we will delay it for a considerable period of time. Two other projects that we would like to submit as modifications would be athletic facility bonds and bonds refinancing. Now, these are placeholders. We've yet to settle on a dollar amount, but we believe that improvements in the stadium, some refurbishing of the stadium, as well as improvements and refurbishing of the basketball facility at the Civic Center, which we now own, could cost upwards of $35 million. By turning this, and this will be handled, we'll come back to you with those details should it happen. By going in now and getting the legislative approval, we can address it now as opposed to later. The bond, because we have to wait for the legislature to act. So if we delay this year, then we're at least a year away from doing it because we have to wait till the 2014 legislature. The bond refinancing now are bonds that are 10 years old that the boosters have, roughly 5% bonds that they did in 2003. We can begin looking to see if we can beat those rates. And so we'd like, again, the legislature to tell us, go ahead and look. So that's the third change we propose. And then the final one does deal with deals with the new Civic Center, the old Civic Center that we've inherited. And part of it is if we have committees working on it, and 6 committees actually are studying various aspects. And if we can find activities that qualify, there's a possibility that we could ask the legislature for our PO&M money, plant operations and maintenance, to help us with the Civic Center. I think you all know it's had some difficult times of recent. It's one of the reasons we were able to get in the position we're in. And so we have estimated, again, another placeholder, we've estimated that we're going to be able to uncover about 15,000 square feet that will qualify because of the academics we can bring to that facility and would be eligible then for some PO&M dollars. Those are the 3 modifications we'd like to change that currently are sitting with the Board of Governors, and with your approval, Mr. Chairman, we will make these modifications.
Are there questions? Peggy, you're recognized.
Can you clarify for us, John, is our PICO list is really just a wish list now?
Yeah, you know, but last year, much to our surprise, we got $3.8 million to begin planning the building, the EOAS building that Dr. Barron was speaking about. The latest information we've gotten from the governor is don't count on anything. But everyone is working on their list, and we're submitting like we really mean it, and we do. But we have not seen where the source of funding would come. And there's a Blue Ribbon Committee working on that, how to fix the problems with PICO funding.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's kind of a wish list.
Any more questions? Is there a motion?
So, Trustee Burr, so moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Haggard seconds it. This is a motion to approve the revisions to the fiscal year 2013-2014 fixed capital outlay budget. Are there any more questions? Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, show the motion carries.
The final item, yesterday the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee voted to remove the Seminole Housing Project from the consent agenda and to bring it as an action item to the full board. I'll turn the issue over to our chairman, Mark Hillis, for discussion and consideration. Mr. Chairman, if you want, I can give a summary of the project if you feel it's necessary.
What we'll start off with, I've given everybody, Matt Binke provided a summary of the proposed housing facility for Seminole Boosters, which supplements what we have in our board book. And Andy Miller and Matt Binke, our CFO for the Boosters, as well as William Butler, who is the real estate advisor for the Boosters, are here to answer any questions, should anyone have any questions related to this. Also, Trustee Burr would like to comment this morning on the process of utilizing the FSU Real Estate Foundation on real estate disposition decisions made by our DSOs. So, Ed, if you'd...
You're recognized, Trustee Burr.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess since I was the one who wanted it removed from the consent agenda, I must be the one who wants to talk about it today, so I'll do that. This was brought to the committee yesterday, and you know, I don't know if everyone knows about the project. I'm assuming everyone's aware of this project. I was aware of it as of yesterday, but it's a student housing project that will be available primarily, or at least in compliance with NCAA rules, to allow for athletics, scholarship athletes to stay there, as well as other students as well. The Boosters, on task as they always are, had a mission to get this facility built. It's been desired by our coaching staff, and the only way they could see to do that, it was a $12 million project. I think you've been given an outline of $11.6 million project. The bank financing $6.5 million. They needed $5.1 million of cash equity to complete and build the project. And given the resources they had, they made probably the best decision they could make, and that was to essentially take a 7-acre piece of land that's owned by the Boosters and sell it to a third-party commercial developer to do, well, the developer, technically, the developer's paying $5.1 million for an option, and someone can correct this if I get this wrong, $5.1 million for an option to lease the property anytime for the next 5 years and to enter into a lease for a 42-year ground lease on that property, and build a student housing complex is contemplated on that property by the developer. At any point in time, I guess, or at the end of the 5 years, they can trade in that option for the deed, so they can choose to purchase the property instead of option the property. Given the resources in the area that the Boosters had and being mission specific to get this student housing complex built, I understand why they made that decision. You know, this board formed the Real Estate Foundation, I can't say when, 18 months ago, 2 years, a year ago. And one of the goals of this Real Estate Foundation, which is comprised of real estate development professionals, I think putting the board together has been, who's ever gone through doing that has been very thoughtful. And they got a good group of real estate development professionals. Myself may be excluded. I serve at the request of this chairman. But one of the tasks is to understand that we're real estate constrained and that the property on our borders is very important to the future of this university, and that we need to inventory our property, understand who owns the property, but collectively under the big U, university, there's a lot of property owned between the university and our DSOs, and then identify other property that could be acquired or be contributed, and really start to work to protect our boundaries and to make sure they're developed in the best way possible to not only benefit and serve the university, but also create revenue streams for this university that can be used for various purposes. And when I heard yesterday that we're selling a 7-acre piece of property that would be identified as a key piece of property and a key revenue opportunity to develop and provide resources to this university and to make sure it was developed in such a way to complement the mission of this university, it disturbs me, and it flies in the face and conflicts with what the mission is of the Real Estate Foundation. I'm not faulting the Boosters, as I said, given the scope of what they had to work with. My point is, I think given time, the Real Estate Foundation could have found possibly an alternative way to finance the $5.1 million, given a group of real estate experts, not taking any away from Will Butler under his consultation with the Boosters, but a group of real estate developers and experts. Maybe a package could have been put together to find resources within this university or outside of it to generate that $5.1 million and keep that 7 acres in the confines of this university and for the benefit of this university. And I think we have to, and my point in bringing this up is I want us to either embrace that concept that the Real Estate Foundation Board has embraced, because we think that's our mission, or we have to understand that we have another mission. We have a similar goal, with some of the excess land surrounding the Civic Center. There's land there that has a highest and best use, And I know I'm working with Carolyn on the ownership issue there, where that should be housed, but I, make sure that Real Estate Foundations is represented on the highest and best use aspect of that as well. At this point in time, given the boosters' timing, they've told me if we could find the $5.1 million in the next week or 10 days, they could stay on schedule. Well, I worked hard overnight to find $5.1 million. I just can't come up with it. So I don't know that we have any choice but to go forward with their proposal as it is. I just think that going forward, we have to find a better way to do projects like this and make sure that we do it in the best interest of the entire university, and that we consider all of the resources we have available to us in executing a project like that. So I'm not here to speak against going forward with this project. Given the time, we'd either have to go forward with this as it's proposed, maybe some modifications, or we'd lose a year in the process of building this student housing complex, which is really desired by the coaches to help emphasize or provide housing for the athletic student athletes. So that's my summation of it. And I also think I think this board needs to know about this project and not be on the consent agenda. So that's a secondary reason to do it. But I think it rises to the consciousness of this board. So,
June?
So I'm to understand that this is the wants of the coaches, right? And we have an indoor facility that's being built for the wants of the coaches. Are we rushing into things for the want, and I don't know, the wants of the coaches that would later on be more, is it absolutely necessary to have this for the student athlete right now? Would it help in recruiting and all what the coaches desire? Or would it be better to wait for the whole university? But we don't have a vote on this, do we, or not?
yeah, we're asked to approve this. It's a financing transaction, I think needs our approval.
Yes, we are being asked to vote.
We are being asked to approve, not the sale of the property. To be clear, I think they have the authority to sell the property. But I think we're being asked, and I don't want to, I'm way overreaching my area, my level of pay grade right now, but I think we're going to be asked. The motion is for us, this would have been on the consent agenda because they're financing and obtaining financing to do this.
So their booster board is not in total control of this, right?
The booster board has
Like with
approved.
other things.
Most financing projects go before the Board of Governors through our trustees. This one will go just to you because it's talking about a mortgage on the 6.5%. But it has to be approved by this board. It will not go to the Board of Governors. It'll stop here. So your decision is final.
But to answer your question, I was looking to see if Randy was still here. I don't think he is. Is he? Oh, good. Well, then you can answer about coaches' preferences.
Why don't you come to the podium, Randy, please? And while he's on the way, you bring up a very good point. We have a real estate foundation. Real estate deals should be run through there, and we should have a good accounting and summation of some sort of all the real estate in the real estate foundation, just by the very nature of it, and also because of the experts that are on it should be in the middle of all these things. So, and President Barron, I hope that we would make sure we do that as time goes on. Randy?
As it regards to our coaches, it's very important to our coaches that we do have a facility sometime in the future. It does impact our recruiting. It does impact our ability to monitor them in their daily lives and that likes. I can't say that if we delayed it that it'll impact our graduation rate, our wins and losses next year and that likes. But I know we would like to move forward with it. And the boosters have been very supportive to do that, but I honestly can't say that a one-year delay will put us at jeopardy, I guess is the best way I could say that.
Mark Hillis, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do, and I'd like for Tom Jennings to tell us a little bit more about the foundation, because we are adding some more board members, and as Ed said, we have a lot of expertise. I support what Ed has said, and I support what Chair Benz has said about utilizing this real estate foundation in the decision-making process related to all real estate that is taken in by our DSOs. And I think it would behoove us, be the right thing to do.
Tom, you recognize.
Thank you. And just very briefly, the Real Estate Foundation was created a little over a year ago. It has 5 at-large members and 2 appointed members. I am the president's appointee to the board. Trustee Burr is the board's chair's appointee to that board. The other 5 members are real estate experts from around the state of Florida. There's no staff, full-time staff at this point. The FSU Foundation chief financial officer is serving as the de facto staff person in the interim. You may recall that the Real Estate Foundation was initially created to help shield the FSU Foundation's endowment from potential lawsuits that might occur as the FSU Foundation accepted gifts of real estate. So that was one of the primary reasons for it. As the conversation about the Real Estate Foundation evolved, and we began benchmarking against other institutions and learning what they did with their real estate foundations, we learned that this was an enormous opportunity for the university long-term as we began to accept gifts of real estate and as we made it a priority for fundraising for many of our alumni and donors who have property that they might gift to us. It was also envisioned by the Real Estate Foundation as they started to meet that they should become the experts among the DSOs on real estate matters as they relate to identifying the highest and best uses of property, protecting the borders, and doing some of the other things that Trustee Burr suggested. So this is a direction that, and the direction that other universities have gone in. It's a direction that the Real Estate Foundation believes is the right course for FSU to go in. Over time, of course, the FSU Foundation and the Seminole Boosters have accepted gifts of property. The boosters have, in effect, become real estate managers because there had been no real estate foundation beforehand, and so they've developed some level of expertise in this, and they've done these projects because there was no other vehicle to do it. So now we find ourselves with a fairly new foundation, but with no full-time staff and a very minuscule budget, less than $100,000 of operating funds to move forward. We've pieced together funding from the foundation, the boosters, and the university to engage a consultant on a part-time basis because we don't believe that there's enough work right now to engage a person full-time, and we've been in conversation with that person about that, and there seems to be a motion in that direction. And we're also about to add, at the next meeting of the Real Estate Foundation, we expect to add 2 additional members to the board, one to serve as a representative of the FSU Research Foundation, and another at-large member who probably will come from the Tallahassee area. And that's because most of the current members of the, or all the current members of the Real Estate Foundation are outside of Tallahassee. And so one of the things we're lacking right now is local knowledge to help advise the boosters or the foundation on these kinds of questions. I should also say the composition of the Real Estate Foundation sought to engage the foundation, boosters, and alumni. And so there are representatives from each of those 3 DSOs on the Real Estate Foundation. Of course, we look to real estate experts from those DSOs. And that's another reason why we want to have the Research Foundation have a representative on this board as well, because they're one of the major real estate holders of university-related property here, too. I'm happy to entertain any other questions.
Joe Gruters, you had a question a while ago.
No, not a question, just a comment. And I know the Real Estate Foundation Board is relatively new, and their scope is not completely run its course yet. But I think that maybe any type of real estate development that comes before this board or that gets passed before it goes before any DSO board, it should probably it should probably be submitted to the Real Estate Foundation Board, and maybe with their expertise, they could take a look at it and then give the recommendations both to the DSOs at the local level, and then if it comes before us, we could have a recommendation from them first.
Peggy?
I wholeheartedly concur with what's been said here. I think there's another thing that we need to keep in mind. Right now, this university has a master plan, and the master plan is looked at periodically to see whether it meets the needs and anticipates the future needs of the university. It also gives the university some control over the appearance, the aesthetics of both the buildings within the boundaries of the university's land and controlling our borders, which is kind of a fundamental of real estate planning. And so it seems to me that when we allow well-intentioned DSOs with a mission to sell off pieces of property that could in the very near future be needed by this university to be developed outside of the authority of the university, we're giving up a valuable resource. And so I think the concept of having the DSO-owned lands, when they're being considered for development or for sale or a long-term lease, that the proposals should be vetted by the foundation. And if we need to hire consultants or experts in particular areas, there's certainly a lot of expertise on the foundation and, of course, available in this state. But we have folks on the foundation that are very familiar with financing, with planning, with use, with tenancy. So why not avail ourselves of that opportunity? And I particularly think that this is such a large piece of land. 7 acres in Tallahassee is in the core of the university, too. Is a pretty big chunk of property. So my inclination would be let's defer this and see if we can come up with the resources under the auspices of the foundation and work with the boosters to come up with a better solution.
Any more comments?
I have one in addition to what Peggy said, too. Having the real estate foundation involved also in the acceptance of real estate that we take to be considered by the bylaws of the real estate foundation, not just the sale or the development of it, but be in conjunction with what we're doing in the real estate foundation.
This also helps on the transparency issues, too.
I've been deeply involved in this for the last 18 hours or 12 hours or 16 or something like that. And I agree with every comment. But I do think we probably ought to look at this prospectively. It is, and Andy's here and can speak to it as well as the athletic director. It seems like this horse is way out of the barn. A lot has been done on this project. A lot's been negotiated. It's certainly within our power to say, let's wait and stop. A deferral is a year's deferral. Because you can't get it done otherwise. And as much as it pains me to lose 7 acres that we might otherwise be controlled, I can't sit here and say there's an absolute solution to that. I think given time we could find a solution. If I could guarantee there would be, and I tried to get that over the last 12 hours, I think we could, but I can't promise that we have a better solution than the sale that's currently contemplated on the table. So my encouragement is to look prospectively, to accept that maybe if we'd have been 90 days ago having this conversation, we may be in a different place today. But that's not casting aspersions or trying to change history. I just think that if we ought to if what I'm hearing is some consensus that we look at things different prospectively, and it may just be too late on this transaction, but it's certainly within this board.
President Barron, comments?
Okay, so I really agree with what Trustee Burr has said, and this is a new process, and there is a lot of land out there, and I think, given the fact that we've had quite a bit of independent operation for a long period of time, that it takes a little time for something like a real estate foundation to to develop and have people have the confidence so that regardless of where you're operating, lands that are donated go through the real estate foundation so we have sufficient expertise, and lands that are sold go through the real estate foundation so we have sufficient expertise. I think that for this board to entertain such a direction for the university to basically say this is the way we should operate would be a healthy outcome. But when we set it up, we really thought about protecting the foundation assets and getting expertise on board, and there was no directive to the boosters to say, hey, look, you're a part of this too when it comes to land management, because we need to be thinking about this overall perspective. So my feeling is now, so far down the line, to go back and say, okay, now that we have a sense of this, we should be doing this all the time, and to do it at the end when basically we've busily encouraged them, and it is a high priority of the coaches, and athletics and boosters have worked very closely together. I'm particularly pleased at the degree to which athletics and the boosters have been working very well together, and the boosters are there really to support athletics. I think it'd be too bad now to step back on this particular project and say, okay, this is the way we should have done it from the beginning. So my hope is that you will say, okay, fine, we'll proceed. It is a lot of acreage, but fine, we'll proceed. But now we're going to go back. We formed this for one purpose. But now really the sense of this board is when it comes to property management, we need to be running these through the real estate board, because that's not what we decided at the beginning. So it's just my 2 cents there.
Okay, to move this along, why don't we see if there's a motion in a second, and then we'll get into the question phase. We can get more into the discussion phase. But is there a motion that we approve?
Trustee Camps, I move that we move the project forward.
Is there a second?
Assembler seconds.
Okay, so we have it in the proper context now. Are there any questions of Mr. Hillis, of Andy Miller? Do you want to make a few Okay. Does anyone? Jim?
Well, I unfortunately did not really digest this item prior to the meeting today, and it appears as though the 40-year ground lease is an integral part of this project. Can somebody tell me, is this the ground lease from College Town? It's totally separate?
Totally separate.
Is it a credit lease that could be sold on the open market if need be?
If you would state your name for the records.
Good morning, President, Chairman, and Trustees. I'm Will Butler, a real estate asset manager representing the Seminole Boosters. I've been intricately involved in the negotiations on this ground lease, and the entity would be a capstone, which is not, I would not consider them a credit rated tenant. But we are the ground lease structure would be where we would receive the full fee value day one as a year one payment. So in other words, we basically are getting full value of the property year one. So
that was my question, because it appeared as though there was a hypothecation going on. There's some other party coming in and fronting the cash, and in return getting the lease, the future income stream. So it's a lump sum payment.
It's a year one, yes, sir.
It's already been discounted, and that's the.
We went and got an appraisal. It appraised in today's market full fee simple value was 5.1. We insisted on getting that as our year one payment for the ground lease, so that we would be whole regardless.
So we have that in our pocket. I mean,
yes, sir.
That's pretty obvious here, but I was just curious as to how that worked.
And we also negotiated a % kicker as part of the net cash flow, assuming this thing performs like everybody thinks that it will.
Okay, and my second question, probably for Andy. The generation of $500,000 in income, what are we basing that on? Where's that coming from?
Andy Miller, you're recognized.
Yes. The two main objectives, obviously, are to provide student housing, but also to create income flow for our athletic program. And we're basically projecting on the numbers, the pro forma. That's, I think there's a copy in your packet.
And I didn't.
And we think, as we discussed at earlier meetings, we talked about 25 ideas to enhance revenue, and this is one of the big reasons why we exist, is to try to generate income to support the athletic program.
Okay.
And we believe that the funding is needed now, and it's incumbent on us to maximize that asset. We do very much support the formation of the Real Estate Foundation, and we want to cooperate and be involved. In fact, Will Butler's been very much involved in that, as well as Brian Swain, our past chairman. We think it's a great idea. We have probably 18 additional acres within blocks of the core of the campus that we look forward to working with the Real Estate Foundation to develop. We've been having weekly meetings with the city of Tallahassee. We've met with the University, Dennis Bailey and John Carnegie. We discuss our ideas with various parties, trying to keep the best interests of the university at heart. But we do believe everything's permitted. We got a very tough schedule to get everything built, constructed. We plan to close within the next 10 days and have the facility open by the 2013 season.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I plan to support the item. I think I've had
Ed,
my questions
you had a
answered.
question? Or comment?
The only thing that was brought up at our committee yesterday, and Trustee Hillis may want to comment on, is that the cash flow is before any capital reserves for this complex, and they've noted it in their presentation today. And I think we may have gotten to an amendment yesterday that we wanted those, make sure they put aside capital maintenance reserves. I know there's a lot of pressure for cash flow, but that, I don't know, it needs to be part of the amendment. We didn't get that far because I wanted it delayed to today's conversation.
That is the one thing we asked yesterday, and Will, I don't know what typically you might consider a percentage, of that total facility you might need for reserves. Have you thought about what that number might be, which would reduce his cash flow?
We have asked the project managers who have been running those pro formas for some of that information. They're going to give it to us on a per unit basis, and we'll bake that into the cash flow projections going forward.
Okay.
Chairman?
Susie, you recognize?
I just wanted to approach it from a little bit of a different angle in support. In the Student Affairs Committee yesterday, we reviewed the current Dust Bowl plan for 2 new dormitories, and then in the future, the Divinity and Dorman renovation. And even with those, we're still at about 75 to 80% capacity we discussed in terms of having housing for freshmen on campus. So this also continues to add to our student inventory, if you will, for housing. So it helps to achieve that mission of our strategic plan as well.
And Peggy, you recognize?
I had a couple of questions. I did not see a pro forma, and I don't know if it was omitted from. Oh, there's no pro forma? Okay. Perhaps you can answer a couple of questions. What I'm trying to understand, we have a lump sum upfront, a payment of the discounted to present value of the ground lease rent. So there is a contemplated additional revenues. Are the additional revenues, what is the source of the additional revenue? Is it a percentage rent?
No, ma'am. Trustee Ronda, there are two, the 7-acre ground lease that we are basically converting all of the next 40 years to a year one payment.
Yeah, I understand that.
Is going to be used to provide the equity to the other project. And so the cash flow, the $500,000 plus or minus that you're seeing in your notes there or in the presentation is reflective of the net cash flow on the student athletic dormitory project after the additional debt is put on that project. So it comes from, there are two transactions. One is the ground lease on 7 acres, and there's a separate couple-acre piece over here that we are developing for student housing. The $500,000 is coming from our self-development of that student housing project.
Okay. So, so you're anticipating as the boosters are is anticipating that they're going to do the student dorm there, and your revenues will be from the rental of the housing to the athletes. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
where is the money, since a lot of our athletes would be on scholarship, where does the money come from to pay the room rates for those athletes so that you can service the debt?
Those amounts are funded through the athletic budget as part of the scholarship and aid.
So the boosters are kind of, or the athletic
It's kind of a full
department-
circle.
Okay,
Yes.
so you're recycling. Okay, and, okay, got it. And so, and as to Capstone, you're doing the ground lease to Capstone, and they are doing a private dorm. And is it geared toward grad students, undergraduates?
It'll be a student housing complex. I would not necessarily classify it as a dorm.
Okay.
And I think that they will be open to all students, graduate, undergraduate. They do plan, there is a licensing and marketing agreement as part of this transaction, so they really do want to tie this into FSU and the student population, obviously. And with the booster support, they would hope to get potentially some additional athletes in their facility. But it is a separate student housing complex.
Okay, and the boosters are getting this one-time payment and no additional revenues for the duration of the 42-year lease?
No, ma'am, that's not correct. They are
Okay.
getting the...
What other monies are you getting?
Right. We have got what we call a 10% net operating kicker. In other words, after they have paid their expenses and their debt service and their equity investors' preferred return, whatever's left over, the boosters would get 10% of through the duration of the ground lease. At the end of the ground lease, we get the property back.
And what does your pro forma indicate that break point will be where you start getting some revenue, whatever it is?
It's after year 10, and then really doesn't get what I consider to be really attractive until into the latter half of the lease. When the debt really starts burning down is when our kicker becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Okay. But when we're getting the full fee value in year 1, we still felt pretty good just to even get any percentage of performance down the road.
Okay.
Will, you mentioned that we would get the land back, but Capstone has the option to purchase that property, correct?
If their structure is based on doing a ground lease, but to protect their equity investors, they asked if they could, if they deemed the market not to be in a satisfactory position in 5 years, basically transfer the ground lease into a fee simple acquisition. And that currently is the way that we have the documents in front of us. We are looking at some things that might allow us to revisit that, but that is where we are right now, yes.
And so the purchase price on the option would be the remainder interest at 5 years, after 5 years of burning off the lease?
Well, what they would do, the way we've got it structured right now, is that they will pay us for the option $5.1 million, non-refundable. And so they can either do a ground lease within the 5 years, or if they choose not to, they could convert that to a fee simple acquisition of the 7 acres.
Okay, and how much money would the boosters receive in the event they exercise the option to purchase the fee?
The 5.1.
So it's either a ground lease, so there's no additional money for the remainder interest?
Well, there really isn't. I mean, we're getting the full fee simple value day 1 of 5.1. So there really isn't a remainder value there.
I think that's the point, and that they're getting 5.1 million. That's what they know they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, in deference, they may develop a student housing project, and they may generate a lease revenue and income of 10% to the boosters. But the boosters getting full value, in their opinion, of the property today, 5.1 million. That's what they bargained for. That's all we know they're getting. We don't. I guess it's in theory they could, in 5 years from now, decide to take the deed and not do anything with the property. All those options are currently open. Okay. So the only thing you're getting is 5.1 million. But that's considered, in their opinion, and I don't have an
Land
opinion
is
on it,
worth.
a full value of the property. So they're essentially doing a fee transaction that may have some other sides to it
So-
at some point in time, so.
So could it be either way, but why would you do a ground lease if you could get the fee?
Well, the way this deal is structured with their investors, we asked them the same thing. We said, do you want to just buy it? They said, no, we want to do the ground lease because of the way their equity is structured into
They
this.
can amortize it.
And there's no recapture at the end, so they can write off all the depreciation. So it does make, it's an intriguing prospect for their equity investors. That is their desire. And in terms of the 5.1, we not only got appraisals on the property, but we actually put it out to bid to see what would come back in the private sector market. That was absolutely validated by 3 or 4 different fee simple acquisition offers. It actually came in slightly less than that. So this was the best number that we could get in an otherwise attractive market.
Ruben, you had a question.
There's a follow-up, Chairman?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Just quick question to that with the 42-year lease. Florida State is zero liability in that?
And when you say zero liability, you mean in terms of
Yeah,
personal
so I'm
liability?
trying to get an understanding for what their incentive is to lease rather than just to own, if they're going to be paying $5.1 million right off the bat.
There are tax consequences that that their equity investors find attractive with that type of structure versus just a straight acquisition. And then they also are interested in the licensing and marketing agreement that would go with that would not go with a fee simple sale, disposition of the property.
Excellent. All right. And this one, I guess, is to you, Chairman, or President Barron. I think I agree with Trustee Burr's sentiments in that, I'm not necessarily thrilled about giving away 7.2 acres, but I do understand the importance of this new facility and this deal to go down. What can we do as trustees to ensure that future real estate transactions in the future do go through this real estate foundation? And, what sort of precedents can we set beyond just the simple approval of this decision?
Well, during this discussion, I have chatted with our trustee legal counsel to draw up a motion, assuming that this one, whatever happens with this motion. But I'm proposing I would accept a motion that basically says all future real estate deals go through and have the blessing of, she's got it, much better language, through the foundation, and also that the master plan, that it's part of our overall master plan. I think that's a very important point that you made as well. So I will tell you, I also intend to vote for this motion, but frankly, only if I see there's consensus that we pass this next motion saying all future real estate deals by DSOs or whomever go through this well-qualified real estate foundation. Does that help you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim?
Mr. Chairman, quickly, if Capstone exercises their option to purchase the property, I think it would make sense to include in the document that our foundation would retain a right of first refusal should the property ever be resold down the road.
How does that affect the deal?
We're already contemplating some additional language that effectively accomplishes the same goal.
Okay.
So do we want to amend the motion to include your language?
I would like to see that.
Okay.
If it
All right.
doesn't create a problem.
Well, yeah, I think to Jim's point, the same thing could happen before they take the deed. If they're not going to develop the property, that we would want a reverter. I mean, I don't want them to sit there and do nothing for years on this piece of property. So, I mean, what I'd like to do is sort of give a guidance that we would like for you. I'd hate to condition the approval on something that hasn't been negotiated on such a short time frame. As much as I feel it's important, I'd probably like to encourage the staff that if they take a deed, that if they ever sell it, we get a first right of refusal. I think that's good. But also, if they don't develop the project as we foresee them doing, that we have a right to repurchase the property, for maybe less or a fair market value or 5.1 with some accrual rate on that, and that we'd have that right for it. Some other thing could be done to it in the 5-year
Isn't that,
period.
I think that's part of the deal now, isn't it? That if it's not developed in 5 years, we have the right to repurchase?
No, they have the right to convert the option from a ground lease provision to a fee simple. I clearly hear
Well, it says ground lease deals, option to purchase property if not developed after 5 years.
Right. They have the option then. They could.
They just convert it.
Only Capstone
Yes,
does,
ma'am.
not us.
Correct, to purchase it
Okay.
back. But I think the guidance is understood, and obviously when we're in the final throes of these documents, that would be very helpful to have it in the form of guidance as opposed to a motion. Obviously, we will
Well, it's an
hear what the
amendment to a
trustees
motion.
are saying. Pardon me?
It's an amendment to a motion, the language that we're talking about.
I agree with Ed. Let's leave
I'm
it
not
out of the
propo-
motion.
You what?
Let's leave it out of the motion.
Okay, all right.
Negotiate it separately.
Okay. Any more comments by board members? John?
If I might just share 21 years of frustration at Florida State. It's not even the money has not been the great frustration in getting land. It's been the inability to be nimble enough to move quickly. We just saw this, some properties that come out of foreclosure. We can't move quickly. We've had $37.5 million from the state in my 21 years here. We still have about $3 million remaining. As we move forward and try to pick up a parcel, these people aren't willing to wait for the process. So my only caution is when we set up the role of the board or the real estate foundation, let's make it as nimble as possible so that we can move quickly, not have to wait weeks and months in order to make an offer. We've talked to a lot of people that like to sell to us, and we say, we'll be back to you in 6 months. And it just doesn't happen. So if you'll give us a small committee or maybe a committee representative of one that can work with us so that we can move quickly on Carolyn's motion, that would just be so appreciated. Because otherwise, we just can't do business.
Okay. All right. We have in the proper frame, I think. And are there any more questions? Is there any more discussion? I do want to let you know my vote is going to be subject to the next motion that comes up. And I want to read you the proposed motion. You can be changing it or amending it. The next motion would be to direct all DSOs to consult with the Real Estate Foundation and university staff who oversee the campus master plan during the planning phase of any real estate project as a condition of bringing a project to this board for approval. I think that's what we talked about. So, Mark?
We also mentioned the acceptance or for the DSOs to be in conformance with the bylaws of the Real Estate Foundation, not have their separate real estate bylaws, which would conflict with what I think we're trying to accomplish here. So we're starting from the acceptance of the property because, and going all the way through the process of either selling it or developing it.
Right.
I mean, I don't do anything to inhibit the donation of real estate to this university or the DSO. Right. So if that was in any way a barrier to that, we've got so many motions going on here. No. We can delay discussion on that one, but if there was a...
there is a motion on the floor that we've had questions, discussion, and I think we're in a posture now to vote on the motion to approve the Seminole Boosters proposed facility and project. I don't think it needs any more discussion. I don't think we need to call the roll. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Now, we're off script a little bit, but I do want to move on to the next motion that I propose. It's not in our book, but I have read a proposed motion. Do you want to make some changes to it, Mark?
I'd just like to mention, I served on our foundation board for 14 years, and I chaired our real estate committee for many, many years and rewrote, the real estate policy with others over a period of time. One of the biggest problems we had at the foundation, and this is the same going to be at the real estate foundation, is we took a lot of property we should have never taken. We thought it was an asset. That property turned out to be a liability. I can give you numerous examples of properties that we should not have taken. And I'm just saying that if we're going to make this motion now, it shouldn't be just related to the disposition of the property that any DSO owns. It should be related to also the acceptance of properties, because we're taking properties that we should not take, and we have lost a lot of money over a long period of time because of that.
I think to elaborate on what Mark has said, when we say acceptance, it's acceptance and acquisition. And the guidelines of the foundation, the real estate foundation, take into account the need for due diligence. Because apparently one of the big omissions in some of the acceptances of bequests or donations was the absence of due diligence. So the university ended up indirectly acquiring properties that were not assets, but came with a whole bag full of liabilities, and or lacked access or whatever. So I think it's a reasonable business approach to have this as part of the motion.
Well, and kind of what I'm hearing is we might want to be just a bit more thoughtful and deliberate on this motion.
I agree.
And bring it back to the next meeting.
I think we should, because we don't have a funding mechanism, and there's some pieces of this that we need to have operational before we move the motion forward, based on what Dr. Carnegie just said.
Well, I think that we should be thoughtful and deliberate, but I think the message has been sent pretty clearly. Dr. Barron, you want to comment?
Well, we will accept the spirit of the discussion until such time that the motion is crafted and the process is identified. But we will accept the spirit that this is not just go and do it, but instead there's an expectation. But we'll work hard to make sure that we don't come up with something that's cumbersome and slows everybody down. But I think I completely agree with what has been presented here, and if we had thought about it, we would have planned this all out carefully when we started just trying to protect the assets of the foundation because of real estate. So,
everybody okay with that? If there's a no, please let me know. And look, it's good spirited debate. I have this funny feeling that before any deals come before us in the future, that they're going to be vetted pretty well.
Yeah, we can always decline on the basis that the Real Estate Foundation hasn't looked at it, so you can back into the same policy. So,
yeah.
You know, I don't want to burden our DSOs with too many restrictions or overreaching. So.
All right. Thank you for the good spirited debate and for letting everyone know your feelings. Next, we'll hear from Carolyn Egan, our General Counsel.
And we are again here on the DSO bylaw revisions, so pertinent to our last discussion. As you will recall, we looked at several areas in which to make the DSOs operationally more uniform and make them a little easier for us to administer and make sure that appointments are done on time and in ways that they should be. There were several areas that we asked each of the DSO boards, our volunteer boards, to look at. We asked them to adopt 3-year terms for non-ex officio members. We asked for nominations to be provided to the university president by June 1st so that we knew who was on each of the nomination lists, so we knew about cross-pollination between boards and where people were serving. We asked for 25% of the board membership to be appointed by President Barron, and for the inclusion of this board's chair or designee. There was also a couple of other budget items that we want the budgets by May 1st, but those didn't seem to be quite as difficult. When we sat down to do this, what we found is that there were a few different groups as we fell out and trying to do this. Ringling, the easy one, 100% of their board is appointed by statute by the president, so there wasn't much to do there. The next group, the next sort of lump, were some of our smaller DSOs where they're smaller boards. It was very easy. There's a finite number of board members. Very easy to modify the bylaws to have the right timing and to have the right terms and to have the appointments be done by our president. And the third group was a little more difficult to wrangle in terms of our bigger foundations and DSOs, the FSU Foundation, the boosters, financial assistance, and to some degree alumni. This became a little harder because on those boards, they don't necessarily have a defined number of board members. On some of their bylaws, it says no less than a certain amount, or it says no less than a certain amount and no more than this amount. So since the number of directors vary, it's hard to make sure that we have 25%. So we wrangled with that problem a little bit. Where we arrived was that with the FSU Foundation, the boosters, FSU financial assistants and alumni will bring their slate of candidates to Dr. Barron prior to voting on the slate of candidates for Dr. Barron's approval. So that has the effect of 100% of the candidates coming to the FSU president for approval prior to their appointment and their election to any of these boards. So it's a different way of accomplishing hopefully the same goal and the same intent. There's a spreadsheet detailing what each DSO did to accomplish that, but you'll see pretty much what I just explained. So we think that they're all in order. We will try this process of bringing the nominees in early for the president to review and approve those and see if that fits our needs and achieves the accomplishment of making it more uniform, more simple to administer at the same time of year with renewal cycles being in line. So our regulation requires this board to approve any amendments of our DSO bylaws, so we would ask that you do so if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? President Barron?
I was just going to comment. This has already had a positive influence in terms of my seeing nominations and board members ahead of time and in terms of submissions of budgets, because what we saw before was with every DSO operating on different time frames and with different rules, we weren't sitting there going, every month saying, is this DSO paying attention? And so we realized that we had DSOs that weren't paying attention to the rules. So now they're stepped up and paying attention to the rules, and our boards have full complements of members instead of having some drop off the list and never be approved. And all of a sudden you're wondering whether you're operating within the rules. So it's already been a positive, had a positive impact. And I think we've come a long way. And I'm so glad this time we have a chart so everybody can see who did what as opposed just to reading all those lengthy bylaws. But I'm very appreciative of the changes that have occurred so far.
Good, and I think we've discussed this adequately at previous meetings. Any more questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Trustee Haggard moves.
Trustee Burr
Trustee Burr seconds. Are there any more questions? Any discussions? Any objections? Seeing none, show the motion passes. Thank you.
Make our life simpler.
Okay, let's go to the chairman's report now. And the first issue is the president's evaluation. And Dr. Barron and I have chatted. We thought that he might feel more comfortable being outside the room during this because we're going to be pretty rough on him, I think. But no, I'm kidding. So, but he will come back to go over his goals.
Is he going to watch TV while he's gone?
I mean, that's what I said. I can look at the films anyway, so whatever. But it's. I think we all understand. It's a bit more comfortable. At the September 7th board meeting, I think I mentioned that the president will be distributing his report on the 2011-2012 academic year. Trustees subsequently received the report and the 2011-2012 evaluation form. All the responses to the form have been summarized, and they're now in your materials. This is it right here. And this is some more of it. So basically, I think we have a good report, and at the end of the day, we basically decide whether or not we want to have him continue with his contract. I mean, that is what we are supposed to do by Florida statutes. So that's what this discussion is about. So you've all had a chance to review the evaluation. Comments? Are there any comments? Any observations?
I felt I was not really sure how we were moving along in the billion-dollar campaign, and I think yesterday in the workshop was instrumental for me to look at the framework of that, because that was part of the mission, was to raise money, $1 billion, and I felt very good about that. Number two, had a better understanding of the finances of the institution. You know, we discussed a lot of policies and procedures, but when it came to a fiduciary knowledge, I felt like that was enhanced as well. So I think we're moving forward in the right directions.
Any more observations? Basically, then what we are talking about is we have completed the evaluation, and the evaluation indicated that President Barron has attained the goals that were set for him by the Board of Trustees for the year ended June 30, 2012, and that his contract should be continued. Again, I want to offer time for any comments or observations. Seeing none, then we need a motion. Is there a motion? Are there any questions or comments on the evaluation? Is there a motion to accept the evaluation?
Trustee Assembler so moves.
Trustee Kinsey, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any questions? Any objections to the motion? Seeing none, show the motion passes. Why don't we, also, let's talk about the President's goals for the current year. President Barron really kind of wants to lead us in that discussion, so we're almost done, folks. We have one more item coming up, which is an efficiency committee, but we're getting near the end of the meeting, so I know we've had some fun today. President Barron, we have passed a motion to continue your contract. I was a swing vote. No. It was unanimous. Trust me, it was unanimous.
You threw us under the bus.
Okay. So for goals, I tried to pay attention to what you wrote and input we have gotten from different areas and the types of things that we're working in terms of executive leadership. I think the first time we did this, we picked about 12 areas, and then last time it became 16, and this time it became 21. So the number of things that are on the list as special areas of emphasis is clearly growing. The first one is a repeat. These are things that we have to work at every year. And so I think, as some people said, a lot of these goals aren't just single year. They're just every year you work to make progress. The goal that's related to the campaign is one where the A, B, and C have evolved. Basically, you expect that as the campaign begins to develop, you're no longer building the leadership team. You're completing the staffing. You're increasing your contact hours with donors, and you heard a bit about that before. There's a new one in terms of Operation Club for alumni. This is a significant development that really makes sure that we're counting everything associated with our alumni groups rather than having them be independent. And this will increase the size of our number of donors, because right now we don't count them. It'll increase our ability to say thank you. It'll increase our ability to coordinate. And it will create less confusion because we won't have booster clubs, alumni clubs, Seminole clubs, all doing the same kinds of things. So it's closer to a one FSU effort. In promoting excellence for the academic programs, advising and mentoring is still there, but I've added faculty growth with investment to focus on big ideas and areas of high student demand and high need. We did it. We've already begun this particular process. The odd thing about this whole process that you may or may not have recognized is the goals are supposed to be ready in July, and then my accomplishments reviewed, and then a new set of goals produced. So we have this time slippage that is occurring because we don't produce the new goals until you've assessed how I've done for the year and made suggestions for what we accomplished last year, whether we did a good enough job. And so this actually review period started July 1. And so obviously we're not sitting still, and so we've already begun that process, but it's included in there. We put the emphasis on career efforts. You see clearly the reason why. We've added an online learning experience objective that wasn't there before. This is of great interest to the state, and it's also something that we're paying more and more attention to. The merit-based strategies for annual review and rewarding exceptional achievement, that's extremely important to the university. Again, we've begun, and we hope we continue to push that as a very strong merit-oriented effort. The Faculty Senate has asked for us to explore how it is that we're recognizing service in the university. And so because the Faculty Senate asked that, I put it on my goal list for the year so we can begin to work on that topic together. There are two objectives that are here related to athletics. And in the prior 2 years, there were not objectives related to athletics. Athletics has been very strong, but over the process of review and analysis and input, we really came to the conclusion that we didn't have a strategic vision for where athletics is going, and we really didn't have an analysis of how budget matches up with that strategic vision. Those are things that we heard clearly from a number of people, and so I put those on my goal list. I am hoping that as next to last item that you'll take up the notion of creating a board committee that looks at efficiency and effectiveness of operations. We're putting that as an area of internal emphasis, so I added that to the goal. Integrating the Civic Center is a significant job. There are 6 committees that are underway, but we do need to make sure that this is a part of the university and operates functionally, so that got added to the goal list. The branding campaign, as you saw, is beginning to emerge, and we'll want to be able to implement that. Diversity and inclusion has gone from planning and development to implementation, so I added that on the objectives. There are 3 that will probably always be on the list, which is to have strong relationships with the boards that govern higher education and strong relationships with the governor and the state legislature. Those will probably all be on that list every year, given their importance. But I've also added one to promote stronger interaction and communication with the Board of Trustees. It was suggested by one of your members. You may or may not have noticed that we've taken a different attitude about press stories at the suggestion of Chairman Bentz, that when something is happening, we let all of you know, and you get to see what the position is and what might or might not occur, so you're not caught by surprise. So that's one example of enhanced communication. But it may be, so I'll give you an example here. It may be that we'll sit down every month and say, these 6 things have happened that may be important, and send it to you, and if you want to read it, great. But it'll give you a chance to be informed about some things that are developed. It'll make my presentations less interesting, because you'll have already known the Gunter Building was turned over to the university, because we'll put it in the monthly reports. But the idea here is to help you become a much better informed board at the time at which things are occurring. So that might be an example that would go under those goals. So the net of that, based on your input, your evaluation from last year, things that we want to do, comments from the VPs and comments from the Faculty Senate, are those 21 areas of emphasis, 5 more than last time, I think, but I think they're all good things to have on the list for review for next time. And as you know, we've just picked areas of emphasis, even though any topic is fair game. We've picked these areas of emphasis so that I don't send you a book like this, which might make what we do seem kind of meaningless and lose the important things among the details. So, in the past, just for reference for the folks that are a little bit newer, if we submitted our equal opportunity report to the federal government, we'd include that as an accomplishment by the president. And so it was like this. And we've decided, well, we have to do that. So why on earth do I need to tell you that? Let's just focus on the things that are important. So if the Civic Center is worthy and we're integrating it, we'll focus on that, even though anything that is on this list or otherwise is fair game for your evaluation. I submit those 21 to you for approval for the basis of the evaluation for the year.
Okay. This requires a motion. But first of all, any observations, any questions regarding the goals?
Chairman, the only thing, and President Barron and I talked about this, and he completely agrees, that these are in no order of importance,
Yes.
because you can see how much work he has, how much time and effort he continues to spend in building relationships with the governor and communicating. So just because those external constituencies are toward the end of the list, that's no indication of priority. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
And it was suggested that maybe we should change the order and put those constituency ones at the top. And I am happy to do that, or to put on there that the order of these do not reflect priority.
Discussion? Any more observations? Any questions of Dr. Barron? Ed?
I just wanted, it really feels like I'm in the weeds here a little bit, and I'll apologize for that. It's a little wordsmithing, but since our area emphasis where the big idea is university's mission, education, research, and service, and a big component of that now is employment and job placement, I wonder if we want to get that concept in the heading somewhere, how job placement's important. Not only is it, it's education, research, employment, whatever we might put there, because I know that's going to be, and I know it's really in the weeds at that level.
And you'll find the appropriate place to put that in the goals.
Happily. That's the intent.
I know.
Any more observations? And that's not in the weeds, Ed. That's a good observation.
Oh, that's a pen.
Definitely.
Okay. Is there a motion that we approve Dr. Barron's proposed goals for the upcoming year?
So moved.
June Duda moves and Brent Sembler seconds. Any more questions? Any more discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, show the motion carries. The last issue coming up is the creation of an efficiency committee, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday. The President has requested, and I have concurred, in the formation of a Board of Trustees efficiency committee that will work to assess university proposals, plans, and actions on creating even more efficiency within the university, which will allow us to invest in our areas of innovation. And the governor clearly is involved in looking to see that all of the universities are as efficient as can be. I think the legislature feels the same way, and frankly, it's just a good way to do business. So I think the Board of Trustees having a committee, and if you would get with President Barron's office as to whether or not you would like to serve on this committee, or they'll be in touch with you. Let us know. And Dr. Barron, you've got some comments too.
About this committee?
Yes.
No, I basically would like to have it be where if we're developing suggestions that we run it by a group of trustees and get reactions or refinements. And if we have a group of people that are very involved in business and have been working on a lot of efficiencies in their own businesses, that they might suggest to us things that are done that we might be able to do so that we can explore. I think what you can see from that list is every year it gets refined. We've gone from a relatively simple list to finance and administration, John Carnegie's shop, to having 3 pages of things that they're working on. And some of them will be dead ends, and some of them will be quite successful. But I think it would be good to have this kind of give and take. At least we could try it. So I'd love to do it that
It
way.
does require a motion. I can form the committee, but I want to make sure everyone is in agreement that it would be a good move for this board.
So moved to form
Second.
an efficiency committee?
Okay, don't we need a motion?
Let's go ahead and do it.
Let's, you know what, let's do it to cover the, Susie Bush makes the motion. Who wants to second it?
I second it.
Joe seconds it. Any more questions? Any more discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, show that the Efficiency Committee has been formed through the Board of Trustees.
That was very efficient. I want to congratulate you. I like that, very cool. Couldn't resist.
Yeah. I'm going to turn the agenda over to President Barron for a second for presentation.
So it has been our habit to recognize chairs of the Board of Trustees with a gift. And our master craftsman has designed one such gift for Andy Haggard. And as you know, we moved rather quickly through that particular process with Andy's nomination of our new chair. And so with that, I wasn't prepared with a gift that was created by our master craftsman. So we have this wonderful gavel with William Andrew Haggard, the term of your chair, and thanking you for outstanding service to the board. And I apologize for taking time.
Comments?
No, I tell you, I said it before when I nominated you for our next chairman. It's just such a thrill and a great opportunity to serve as chairman of the Board of Trustees of Florida State University. I think everybody knows how much I love this university, but more than that, working with all of you is what made it such a nice term. So I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for Florida State, how much you helped me, how much you're going to continue to help Alan and Eric Barron, and I can only see after yesterday's workshop, as Alan, you said, we learned so much, and today's presentation all day, or all morning, we have really learned a lot, and I think the future is just unlimited with regard to what Florida State University is going to do, has done in the past, and going to do in the future. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone have anything for the good of the order? By the way, your gavel's bigger than mine was.
Chairman, we shouldn't get personal.
I'm not giving it back.
I have a quick question. Is our next meeting on January 14th, is that going to be a conference call or is it going to be an in-person meeting?
Whatever you, it's typically a conference call, but it doesn't have to be.
We'll let you know the next, we'll poll folks and see what their calendar.
I did happen to notice that that's a Monday, and the Saturday preceding is the North Carolina basketball game here in town. So if that encourages anyone to attend, it might, just share
That's
that
a
little
good
information.
observation. Yeah. All right. Without objection, show the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
She will, too. She will.